Python is a high-level programming language that is known for its simplicity and readability. Python is widely used for various purposes, including web development, data analysis, artificial intelligence, scientific computing, and many more. In this course, we'll cover all the fundamentals of the Python programming language. I'll teach you how to write clean and good Python programs. We'll also create a full backend system for a blogging website with PyMongo and FastAPI. I always try to make short and straightforward courses because I don't like spending too much time learning something. This course is open to individuals who have an interest in pursuing a career in machine learning, AI, and web development. All you need is a computer, an internet connection, your hunger to learn something new, and also a cup of coffee and snacks. Before jumping straight to writing code, let's first set up our environment. You need to install Python. We also need an IDE to write and compile the code. In this lesson, we'll install Python and we'll also set up our IDE. So to download Python, we'll head over to their website. So python.org. Then I'll press enter. So this is the python.org website. So this is the official website. So I'll click on download. Then I'll select this. So just click on download. So you look for your operating system. Since I'm on Windows, I'll just click over here. So if you're on Mac, select Mac OS. So I'll click on download to download Python. So I have Python downloaded over here. So I'll double click on it to install it. So you're going to see this pop-up modal. So make sure to check this, use admin privileges, and make sure to check this. So if this is not checked, you have problem with Python. So make sure to check this box. So after that, you click on install now to install it. So I'll click on yes. So now we are going to wait for Python to finish installing. So setup was successfully installed. So now we have Python installed. So now we'll go ahead and then we'll close the modal. So now we'll check to see if Python is properly installed. So click on the search button over here. Then you can search for command prompt or simply write CMD to open the command prompt. So select command prompt over here. So we have the command prompt open. So this is the command prompt. So go ahead and then write Python, then -- version, then you press enter. So this is my Python version 3.12.1. So if you have this message, it means you have successfully installed Python on your machine. To write your Python code, we need to install an integrated development environment, sometimes called IDE. The IDE will be used to create and write Python code, and also compile and debug our code. In this course, I'll be using VS Code. You are more than welcome to use any IDE of your choice, but I will recommend VS Code because of its simplicity and popularity. Now let's download and install VS Code. So to install VS Code, just type VS Code. So search for VS Code, then press enter. So this is the official website. So code.visualstudio.com. So I'll leave a link to all of these resources. So let's scroll down and click on download over here to download VS Code. Then select Windows if you're on Windows. If you're on Linux, select this. If you're on Mac OS, then select this. So now I have VS Code downloaded, so I'll double click on VS Code to install it. So you check this to accept the license agreement, then you click on next. Then you click on next again. Then you click on install to install VS Code. So VS Code has completely been installed. So let me uncheck this so that I'll not launch it. Then I'll close the setup. So I'll click on finish to close it. So now what I want you to do is to open to your desktop, or you can choose any directory. Then you create a new folder. So this is the folder I'm going to put all of the project files in. So new folder. So I can rename it to maybe Python course. So I'll press enter. So I'll double click to open my folder. So I have my folder open. So now what I want to do is to open the folder in VS Code. So I'll click over here. So after that, I can simply type cmd. So what this will do is it will open command prompt to that folder. So this is the folder open to command prompt. So let me zoom it a little. Okay, like this. So I'll simple type code. So type code, then period. So type code, give a space, then period. So press enter to open VS Code to this directory. So that VS Code will simply open the folder you've just created. So I have VS Code opened, and this is the folder Python course over here. So that's the folder. So next, so let me click on yes, I trust the authors. So click over here to install some extensions. So I want to use some extensions. So search for Python. So select the first extension. So it's called Python. So I already have the Python extension installed, but since this is your first time, you'll find install over here. Just click on the install button to install the extension. So I've just opened an empty folder over here. So I'll open the folder on VS Code. So to open that folder on VS Code, just click on this empty space above. So if you click, then you write cmd. So this will open the folder on your command prompt. So I have the folder open on my command prompt over here. So I'll open the folder on VS Code. So to do so, I'll simply write code, then I'll give space, then period, and I'll press enter. So now we have our folder open on VS Code. So simple click here to trust the authors. So after that, you click over here. So this is the folder Python over here. So I can create a new Python file over here. So to create a file, you simply click over here. So I want to organize my things in folders so that each lesson will have its separate folder. So I'll create a folder here for our first lesson. So I can call it one. So let me just write one. So meaning our first lesson. So I'll click on this one folder. Then I'll create a new Python file over here. So I can simply call this something like maybe lesson.py. So .py. So make sure to have this .py over here. So this .py means that we are creating a Python file. So let me increase the font so that you see everything. So we have this over here. So lesson.py. After that, you press enter. So I have this one folder. Inside the one folder, we have our lesson.py. So inside the lesson.py file, we can then print something. So I can simply write print. Then I'll open. Then I'll simply write hello world. So I can simply run this file. So to run the file, I'll minimize this. Then I'll open back to my command prompt. So this is the command prompt. So I'll have to navigate inside the one folder. So to navigate inside the one folder, I'll use cd. Then I'll write one. So if your folder is demo, if the name of the folder is demo, instead of one, just write demo. So I'll simply clear this, then I'll use the one over here. Then I'll press enter. So we are in the one folder. So to run the Python file, you simply write Python, then the name of your file. And the name of the file is lesson. So if I open, we'll have the lesson file over here. So Python, then I'll write lesson, then I'll put period, then I'll put py again. So this will run the file. So if I press enter, we'll have hello world here. So there's another way of doing this. Instead of going through all this stress, we can have an extension that will cater for everything. So click over here to navigate to the extension. Then you search for, is it code runner? So I think it's code runner. So search for the code runner extension. So this is the extension. I already have the code runner extension installed. So let me uninstall it and install it back. So just click on this install over here to install the code runner extension. So wait for it to install. So I have it installed. After that, always open the Python file. So this is the Python file. So let me try to remove this so that we'll have this like this. So you can right click, then you can select this run code. So after selecting run code, we'll have our code run over here. So this is the hello world. So instead of going through all that stress, you can simply right click and then you can run your code to view it on VS Code. So I can also print a number. So I can come down, then I can have a print. So to print a number, I can just write 39. So I'll simply use Ctrl+S to save. So always save the file before you run it. Then I'll right click again, then I'll run my code. So we'll have 39 over here. So you can always right click and then you can clear your output so that you have an empty output. So I can also have 39 plus. So you can have any mathematical equation over here. So 39 plus 30. So I can run the code and then we can have this over here. So I can change this to multiplication. So asterisk for multiplication. And then I can run the code and we'll have this over here. So let me clear the output and let me close. So we have our first Python file already running on our system. If you need access to the course files, I'll provide a link to the course repository. Simply click on the link to download and extract the files. Additionally, if you are currently watching this on YouTube, please consider giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more content. You can also visit us on fantex.netlify.app. Now let's return to the main video. Comments in Python are lines of code that are not executed by the interpreter. They are used to provide explanation, clarification, or documentation about the code. This means that they do not affect the output of the code. We use comments in Python for various reasons. Code documentations. Comments are used to explain the purpose, functionality, and usage of the code. They provide information to other developers who may be working on the code, making it easier for them to understand and maintain the code. Code debugging. Comments can be used to temporarily disable or remove a piece of code during debugging. This allows us to isolate and identify the cause of any issue in the code. Code organization. Comments can be used to divide the code into logical sections or to mark important points, making the code more readable and easy to navigate. Code reminders. Comments can serve as a reminder or to-do note for future improvements or additions to the code. This helps developers remember additional functionality that needs to be implemented or code that needs to be optimized. It is considered good practice to include comments in code as it makes the code more understandable and maintainable for both yourself and other developers. So I'll create another folder for my second lesson. So I'll click over here to create a folder. So make sure to select this, or you can simply come down, then you can right click, then select new folder. Then I can call this 2. So that's the second lesson. So I can have a Python file over here. So I can just call it lesson.py. So .py. Or let me just change it to main instead of lesson. So main.py. I think this makes sense. So I'll press enter and then we'll have our main.file over here. So I can print. So let's print hello world like this. I can come down to print another hello world. So print, then I can print hello world again. So maybe hello world. Let me add something like again. Can I spell again? Okay, again. So I can simply use Ctrl+S. So let me save it. Then I can right click and then I'll run my code. So we have this hello world and we have hello world again. So let me clear the output. So I'll turn this into a comment. So to do so, I'll bring the cursor. So we have the cursor blinking over here. So I can use Ctrl+// to have this, or you can simply put this hash sign. So I can simply write hash. So if we put the hash sign, it will change this into a comment. So if I save, then I right click, then I run the code, we have our first hello world, but we don't have the second hello world because this have been changed into a comment. But why do we use comment? Why is comment necessary? So let's say we have our piece of code, so our block of codes. So let me just remove this. Let me remove everything. So I can have a comment over here. So I can say something like printing maybe hello world. So can I spell world? Then I can have another comment over here. So I can maybe addition. Then we can have another comment over here. Print a number. So if we check our comments, they are trying to give us clues of our codes. So if you come to this printing hello world, I can come down, then I can simply print the hello world. So print, then I'll go inside here to have hello world. And then I can come to the addition and I can print two numbers, adding two numbers. So I can have 20 plus 50 like this. So I can also come down to print the number, then I'll put this, okay, and then I'll print a number. So let me remove the quotations and I can print something like that. So if we check the code, each comment is trying to explain the block of code below. So that's the essence of comment, so that the comment will make your code easy to write. So if you basically, we don't have a lot of code over here, but if you start building advanced project where you have thousands of codes, so you have 1,000 lines of code, your code will be harder to read. So we use comment to explain each block of code. So you can use the comment to more like a documentation for your code. So if I right click, then I run my code, so we'll have this. Basically, nothing is happening. But if you check, each comment is trying to explain the code below it. Variables are names that represent a value or a piece of information in a computer program. For example, we can have a variable to store a username or age. Anytime we need that data, we can simply call our variable to grab those informations. So I'll create another folder for my third lesson. So I'll click over here, then I'll choose folder, then 3, and then I'll create my file. So main.py. Okay. So let me remove this over here. So we have the main.py created. So I can create my variable. So to create your variable, you simply write the name of the variable. So I can have full name, then I can set it equals to maybe John Deal. Then I can have John Deal's age. So maybe 21. So we have John Deal's, and then we have his age 21 over here. So I can simply print the full name. So I can simply write print. So inside here I can have full name. So make sure it's not in quotation. And then I can come down to print the age. So age. So we have the name and then we have the age. So I can simply run my code over here. And then we have the John Deere and then we have his age over here. So let me clear the output. Then let me close this over here. Let me try to print this in the form of a sentence. So what do I mean? So let me change this to maybe something like welcome. Then I can have John Deal, so full plus full name. So this is string concatenation. So we are trying to add two strings together. So we have welcome, then the name John Deal. So if I run the code, we have welcome John Deere, but there's no space between the welcome and then the John Deere. To quickly fix this, we can add a space between the name and the John Deere. So I can add an empty string. Inside the empty string, then we can have our space like this. So I can run my code. So run code. So we'll have this welcome, then we have John Deere. So let me clear the output. I can also print something like maybe your age is, then I'll try to bring the name. So your age is, then we'll add an empty string, then we'll add the age. So plus age like this. So if I right click, then I run my code, we'll have an error, concatenation error, because we are trying to add a string and a number together, which is not possible unless in JavaScript. We are not doing JavaScript over here. So to have this work, so we can try to convert this into a string first. We just write str, and then inside the str we'll have parentheses, and inside the parentheses we'll try to wrap the h over there. So I'll have my h wrapped inside the parentheses. So now if I run my code, so if I run, we'll have your h is 21 over here. So the purpose of a variable is simple hold value, so that you can simple grab this value and then you can use it anywhere in your code. So I can also come down. So let me come down to have next age. So this next age basically means John Deere's next age, or John Deere's age in next year. So that means we are trying to add 1 to his age. So I can have next age. So this next age basically can be age, and age is 21. And then I'll try to add 1. So meaning 21 plus 1, and that is next age. So I can simple come down, then I can print. So I can print something like your next age. So your next age. So no, okay, let me change this to something like you will be. You will be. Then I'll try to add the h. So plus I'll have an empty space over here. So you will be, then next age. Can I spell next age? So next age like this. By next year. So let's add by next year. So if I run my code, we'll have, okay, we are having problem over here with our concatenation again. So let's convert the next h into a string first. So I'll put my str to convert it into a string, and then I can run the code. So if you come, we'll have you will be 22 by next year. So let me clear my output. Another thing with variables is naming, how you name your variables. So if I remove this underscore and then I put space over here, so if we check, we're having this red tickling line below, so meaning there's problem with your variables. So in naming variables, we cannot use spaces. So make sure to always eliminate your space. So we cannot have a space over here. And we cannot have special characters like maybe this. So that's a problem. So we cannot use characters like this, but we can use the underscore like this. So this underscore is more like a programming paradigm. So maybe if I want to write something like my address, so instead of my address like this, I can simply have it called my, then we can have the address like this. I think this is more nicer than this. So it's more like a programming convention. So I can have my address with underscore over here. So let me simply remove this. So this full name, we can have another full name variable. So full name like this, then I can set it equals to Mary. So Mary Deal. So now we have two variables. So let me comment these so that we will not have them. So we have two variables. So we have the full name above and we have another full name over here. So I can change this. So let me try to bring it down to have two of them over here. So I want to show you something. So instead of full name, so I can have full and then I'll change this to capitals. So capital. So Mary John over here. So if you check, you probably say that these are the same. So since we have full name, you think they are the same, but they are not. So this full name have a capital, while this full name, there's no capital. So this is different from this. That means Python is case sensitive. So if I try to print, so if I print full name with capital, we'll have this Mary John. So if I run my code, we'll have Mary John. But if I try to print the full name with lowercase f, so lowercase f, then I run my code again, we'll have Mary Deal above. It means Python is case sensitive. But in naming your variables, I'll recommend you follow this convention because it's much easier to read your variable. Instead of having full name like this, why not having full name just like this? So we have another naming convention, which is the camel case. So instead of full name with lowercase, you try to change. So you try to change the subsequent word after the first word with starting with a capital. So meaning full name, and then the N here will be capital. So if I want to write something like my home address, so I'll just write my. So the home will start with capital home, then address will start with capital, just like this. So this is another conversion, but I just like this conversion because it's much easier to read. So let me simple remove this over here, and then we'll have everything back. So let me remove the comments. Then we can run our code. Okay, we have everything back again to normal. So we can also reassign a variable. So what do I mean? I can change this full name, so I can change it back to something. So we can change the full name to something like maybe Mark. So if I right click and then I run my code, so now we'll have welcome Mark instead of welcome John Deere, because we've just changed this full name to Mark, meaning you can reassign a value to a variable. You can change it at any point. But if I try before this full name, where I've just changed the full name to Mark, before that full name, if I print, so if I print full name above, so full name, and then I run my code, if we check above, we have John Deere, but here we have welcome Mac, because this is John Deere because we have the variable reassigned after we just printed this full name. So that's why we are having John Deere here before Mac. So if I bring this over here, instead of John Deere, now we have Mac. So if I run, we have Mac over here and we have welcome Mac. String methods are simple actions that can be performed on a string. Let's start by having our string above. So I can have a string, so I can call it sentence, and I can set it equals to, then I can write something like this is my string. So I have a string above over here. So now what I want to do is get the length of the string. So how do I get the length of a string? So to simply get the length, we use the len method. So I can have a variable over here, then I can call it sentence underscore length, or can I spell length? So length, then I can set it equals to, then to get the length of a string, we use the len or len method. So you open with parentheses, and inside the parentheses, we pass the sentence or we pass the string. So we write sentence over here. So let me correct my mistake over here. So now, hopefully, if I try to print the length out, so if I print, so let me have a text before I try to print it. So I can print sentence length. So the sentence length variable over here is holding the length of our string. And the length is basically the number of characters in the string. So count the characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But if we run, I'm sure we are not going to get 14. And I'll explain to you later. So let me run the code. So if we run, we'll have 17 over here. So why do we have 17 instead of 14? So when dealing with characters, white spaces are included. So we have a white space here, so it's included. We have a white space and a white space. So since we have 14 characters, this white space will make it 15, and this will be 16, and this white space added will be 17. So this is basically how to get the length of your string. Next is converting to upper and lower case. So let's start with upper case first. So to convert to uppercase, we use the upper method. So the upper is a method. So how do you use the upper method? So the upper method is attached to every string you created. So if you have your string sentence, then you use period, then you can call the upper. So if you write upper, then you put your parentheses. So this will simply convert the string over here to uppercase. So if I have a variable and I can call it upper, so let me call it upper sentence, then I can set it equals to this. So now if I try to print my upper sentence over here, so let me print it below. So I can print upper, and then let me put my comma, then upper sentence. So now if I save, and then I run my code, and then if we check, we'll have this change to uppercase. So similarly, we can use the lower to create a lower case sentence or a lowercase string. So I can come to have lowercase, and then I can copy this, and then I'll paste it over here, and then I'll change this upper sentence over here to lower, and then the method will be lower, and then we can have lower and then lower sentence. So now if I run my code and then we check, we'll have the string converted to lowercase. So next is capitalize and title. So I'll create them together, and then we'll look for the difference between the capital and the title. So I'll have the title and capitalize. So first, let's start with the title. So I can have a variable, I can call it title sentence. So title underscore, let me just make it this. So I can set it equals to, then I'll target my sentence, which is my string, and then I can use period, and then I can use the title method. So now I can come below, and then I'll try to print it out. So I can have my title, so sorry. And then I can have my title sentence. Sorry. So let me just copy this, and then I'll paste it over here. So next is I'll capitalize. So we can have another variable to store the capitalized string. So I can call it capitalize sentence, and then I can set it equals to, then I'll have my string, which is my sentence, then I'll use period, then I call the capitalize method. So I can come below, then print the capitalized string. So I can have capitalize, and then I can have my capitalized sentence like so. So if I run my code, so make sure to save it before you run. If I run my code, if you check for the title, every first character of each word is converted to an uppercase letter. So we have the T converted to uppercase, the I, the M, and then the S over here. But with the capitalized, the first character is converted to uppercase, and the rest is not in uppercase. So if you check, only our T over here is converted to uppercase. So next is trimming our string. So what is trimming? So let me write trimming. So trimming is basically removing spaces or white spaces in your string. So if I copy my string, so I'll copy the string and then I'll bring it over here. So let's put a white space over here, and then we'll put another white space over here. So now what we want to do is eliminate these white spaces over here. So watch what will happen if I try to print the length of my string before I eliminate the white spaces. So if I try to print the length of my string, so I'll pass len, and then I'll have my sentence. So I can have a text before I print the length. So I can have length before trimming. Can I spell trimming? So trimming. So now if I save and then I run my code, hopefully this will be the length of the string before trimming. It's 19. Watch what will happen if we remove the white spaces and then we try to get the length. So I can have sentence again, and then I can set it equals to, then I can call my sentence, then I'll use period, then I'll use the strip method. So this will eliminate all the white spaces after and before our string. So now if I try to print, then I can have my sentence length after trimming. So now if I try to get the length of the sentence after the trimming, so I'll use the len method, then I'll pass my sentence. So hopefully if I run my code and then I come, now the length after the trimming is 19 because I have removed all white spaces after and before our sentence. So next is start with and ends with. So starts with and ends with. So the start with and the ends with is used to check if the string is either starting with a character or ending with a specified character passed by you. So we have our sentence over here. So let me eliminate. So let me just copy the whole sentence and then I'll bring it below. So I'll eliminate the white spaces we have over here. So now what we want to do is to check and see if the sentence is either starting with T or not. So what I'll do is have a variable over here, and then I can call it check start. So I can evaluate it to my string, which is the sentence, then I'll use period, then I'll use the start with method. So I'll open parentheses and then I'll pass the character I want to check to see if it's starting with. So if I pass T, it means I'm checking if the sentence over here is starting with T or not. So now what I want to print is have our output over here. So I can have start with, and then I can have my check start with. So this will return true if it is true, or else it will return false. So if we check, it will return true because our sentence over here is starting with capital T. So if I run my code, hopefully, and we drag, we'll have start with and it's true. So if I change it to lowercase, so let me clear the output, and then I'll change this T to lowercase t. So now if I run my code, hopefully we'll get false because it's not starting with lowercase t. So always bear in mind that lowercase t is different from uppercase T because Python is case sensitive. So let me have my uppercase T over here. So next is ends with. So it's similar to the start with, only you change this to ends with. So I can have check underscore end, then I can set it equals to, then we'll have our sentence, then period, then I'll have my ends with. Then I'll open my parentheses, then I'll pass the character I want to check. So I want to check for G. So now if I parent, and then I have my output, which is ends with, and then I'll have my check end. So if we check, it will be true because our sentence over here is ending with G. So if I run my code and then we scroll, we'll have ends with and it's true. So if I clear the output and then I close and then I change this gene to something like maybe so T. So now if we run the code, we'll have false because it's not ending with T. So let me clear the output again and then we'll open. So now what we want to do is replace a character in our sentence. So let me copy the whole sentence again and then I'll come below and then I'll have maybe my replace. So I can paste my sentence over here and then we can try to replace any of the characters or word in our string. So let's try to replace this mine to a. So we'll replace the mine with a. So I can have my something like replace text. So this is a variable I've just created. So I can call the sentence, and then I'll use period, then I'll call the replace method. So this is more like a function, and it takes two arguments. So the first argument is the character you want to replace or the word. So I want to replace mine, so I'll put mine. So the second is your new character. So I want to replace it with A. So I'll put A. So now, if I try to print my replace text, so replace text, and then I save, right click and run my code, when we scroll down, we'll have this is a string because we have replaced this mine with A. So I can also replace this string over here with text. So I can have another replace text. So I can have another replace text over here, the same as this, and then I'll evaluate it to this replace text over here, and then I'll call another replace on the string. So what I'm targeting now is my string, and then I'm replacing it with text. So hopefully if I save and then I run my code, we'll have this is a text. So if you check, we have replaced this mine with A over here. We have a new string over here. So now what we are doing is simple grabbing the string over here, and then we are trying to replace the string to text. So next is splitting. So how do we split a text? So I can have splitting. So let's have a bunch of users over here. So I can call it users. Then I can make it a string, and then I'll have names of users. So I can have John, I can have Mary, I can have Dio, I can have Michael, and then, so let's leave it like this. So we have 4 users over here in our string. So what I want to do is to split the string into individual names. So that we'll have individual names split from the string. So what I will have over here is I can have users again, and I can evaluate it to my users, and then I'll use the period, then I'll call the split method. So the split method takes an argument. So the argument over here is the character we are targeting to split with. So if we check, the character separating each name over here is a comma. So I'll pass my comma. So now what it will do is split this string into the names. So watch what will happen if I print users. So now if I save and then I run my code again, then you scroll down, we'll have users over here and it's split into a Python list. So I'm not going to talk about Python list now because we'll do it later in the course. If you need access to the course files, I'll provide a link to the course repository. Simply click on the link to download and extract the files. Additionally, if you are currently watching this on YouTube, please consider giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more content. You can also visit us on fantex.netlify.app. Now let's return to the main video. Python dictionary is a data structure that holds a collection of key value pairs or attributes. Each key is unique and is associated with a corresponding value. However, they are mutable, allowing for modifying, adding, or removing key value pairs. To better understand dictionaries, one can think of them as a collection of attributes associated with a particular entity. For instance, consider a user entity with attributes such as name, biography, age, email, and address. These attributes can be stored in a user dictionary, which conveniently stores and organizes the relevant information. To illustrate the implementation of dictionaries in Python, let's delve into coding and demonstrate the process of creating a dictionary. So welcome back. So let's start by creating a simple Python dictionary. So how do we create a Python dictionary? So we can have a dictionary for our user. So we can have a user dictionary, and this dictionary was simple, contain all the user's details. So we can have the user's email, and then we can set it equals to maybe johndio@gmail.com. I spell Gmail. So johndio@gmail.com, like so. We can have John Deal's age, maybe 21. We can have his maybe address. So address, I think address is okay. So address. Well, let's just change this address to something else. So maybe his name. So let's not forget about his name. So his name, John Deal, like so. So this is a simple dictionary containing the attributes email, age, and username of our user. So we can simple print the dictionary. So I can print it out. So print user. So if I print user and then I run my code, we'll have our dictionary returned to us over here. So let me clear the output. So now what we want to do is, instead of printing the whole dictionary, we want only the email or the age or the username. So we want to get a single attribute from our dictionary. So how do we do this? So to do so, we can have a variable called email, and so we can have a variable called email, and then I can say this variable equals to, then I'll try to grab his email. So how do I grab the email? So to grab any of the attribute, you first of all write the name of your dictionary, which is user in our case. Then you put a square brackets, and inside the square brackets, you pass the attribute you want to grab. So I want to grab the email attribute. So I'll simple put my email over here. So this will simple return the email from this dictionary, and it will store it on this email over there. So hopefully if I try to print, so let me print, so let me put it in maybe email like so. So email, and then I'll print the email. So email. So I'm printing the email over here. So if I run my code, we'll have email, then we'll have the email returned to us. So how about returning the username and the age? It's the same as this. So I can come to have my age, then I can set it equals to user, and I'll have my square brackets, then I'll pass the age, and then I'll have maybe username. So username, then I can set it equals to user again, square brackets, then username. So I can come and then I'll grab this and then I'll duplicate it maybe multiple times, 3 times. Then we'll have our age, we'll have name. So name. So here we'll replace it with this age, and here we'll replace with username. So username like so. So now if I run my code, we'll have the email, we have the age, and then we have his name returned. So this is how to simple grab any of the attribute of your dictionary. So now how about adding a new attribute? So maybe we want to add a new attribute over here, maybe his biography. So to do so, we simply write our dictionary, the name of the dictionary. In our case, is user, right? So user, then you put square brackets again, and inside the square brackets, you write the attribute you want to add. So I want to add the biography. Can I spell biography? So biography, like so. Then you evaluate it to the value. So the value, maybe I love to write Python course, like so. So I love to write Python course. So I can come over here, and then now if I try to print, so let me print the whole dictionary, which is the user dictionary. So if I print the user dictionary and then I run my code, now if you check, we have this biography added over here because we've just added biography over here. So we can get our biography by putting the square brackets, then we'll pass biography like so. And then now if I run my code, we'll have our biography returned to us over here. So this is how to simple add a new attribute to your dictionary. So next is updating an attribute. So how do we update an attribute? So to update the attribute, there are two ways. So let's start with the first method. With the first method, we can have the dictionary like so. Then I can put square brackets. Then I'll simply grab maybe, let me grab the age like so. Then I'll set the age to be equals to maybe instead of maybe 21, let me make it 22, maybe 1 year later. Then if I try to print my user, so let me print user. So now we have updated the age to be 22, right? So if I run my code and then I come, so let me try to print it out. So let me print the dictionary. So I think, okay, I've printed the dictionary. So what is wrong? So let me run my code again. So hopefully if you check, this is the age, right? And now it's 22 over here. So we have updated the age to 22. So we can also, instead of 22, so maybe he is 1 year later. So I can put user like so. And then I'll try to grab his current age, which is 21 over here. And then I'll try to add 1 to it. So plus 1 like so. So hopefully if I run my code, we'll have the same output over here, which is 22. Another way is to use the update method. So to use the update method, you simple grab the value. So this is our value, right? And then instead of it, I'll put update. So dot update like so. And then inside the update, so let's put our parentheses first. And then I'll open the parentheses. Here, I'm supposed to pass an object. So I'll pass an object or a dictionary. So inside this dictionary, then I'll pass the key. So what's the key? So it's age, right? So I can update age to something like maybe, then let's paste this over here. So we are grabbing the current age and we are adding 1 to it. So if I run my code, we'll have the same code over here. Now, if you check, the age is still 22. So this is another way to update your dictionary over here. So we can update the biography. So I can update the biography. Can I spell biography? Let me copy it and then paste it over here. We can update the biography to maybe this is my new. So let me put, where's my cursor? Where's my cursor? Come here. This is my new bio. So hopefully if I run the code, now if you check, the biography is updated and the age too is updated. So we have successfully updated our biography and the age with the update method over here. So it's always recommended to always use the update method instead of using this method over here. So now let's try to remove an attribute. So how do we remove an attribute from our dictionary? So it's pretty simple. So we use the del keyword or the delete keyword, then you pass the attribute you want to delete. So user like so, square brackets. So if I want to delete the email, so I'll select the email, right? So email like so. So now if I try to print, so let me print the user. So let me remove this print over here. Let me remove this print again. So now if I print my user, and then I run my code, and then I scroll down. Hopefully, if you check, we don't have the email again because we've just deleted the email from our dictionary. So that's how to simple delete an attribute from your dictionary. Next is nesting. So what is nesting? So nesting simple means trying to put or trying to nest another dictionary inside your dictionary. Simple putting a dictionary inside this dictionary. So we have a user dictionary, right? So I can copy this and then let me bring it over here. And now inside this dictionary, we can nest another dictionary over here. So let's take it, we have payment details of the user. So we have the payment details like the payment address, country code, and then the country. In which case, we don't want to write maybe a country code, payment address. We don't have to have separate fields for them. We can have one field. So one field like so that this field will hold everything. So just like object-oriented programming, so that we'll have a simple object that will have all the payment details. So inside this dictionary, we can then have the payment address like so. Then we can have maybe street 243, and then we can have country. So I can have my country. So country, then I can set it equals to maybe USA. And then can I spell, let me, your USA. Then we can also have maybe zip code. So let me make it zip underscore code like so. Then we can have our zip code over here. So I think there's problem. So let me close this like so. So now if you check, we have all the payment details wrapped in this payment dictionary below. So this payment dictionary is holding every details of the payments just like this. So if you check now, our dictionary is much better than removing these separate nested attributes and trying to force them over here. So I think now our dictionary looks better. So now if I print user, and then I save, so let me run the code. Hopefully we'll have this over here, and then we'll have our nested dictionary inside here. So how do we get our nested dictionary? So maybe we want to get the payment details. So I can have a variable called payment details. Then I'll set it equals to, then I'll grab my user, right? Then I'll put my square brackets. And the name of the field over here is payment. So I'll just put payment. So payment like so. And then if I print payment details, so payment details like so, and then I run my code, we'll have the payment details returned to us. So this is the payment details address. So let me delete this print over here so that you see it very well. So let me run the code again. So now if you check, we'll have the payment details over here, address, street, country, and then we'll have the zip code. So let me try to put maybe payment details like so. So payment details. Can I spell details? So details. Okay, so I think now it will be better. So that we'll have payment details, then we'll have the dictionary returned to us. So this is how to simply return the payment details or the nested dictionary. So we can also access maybe the person's zip code, country, or address. So this is the payment details holding the payment dictionary over here. So to get the person's maybe zip code, so zip underscore code, we can set it equals to the payment details. Then we'll put our square brackets again. Then we'll have zip underscore code like so. So now if I print, so let me print zip code. So zip code. And then I'll print this zip code. So zip code. So now if I run my code, we'll have the zip code returned to us. So this is the zip code over here. So that's how to simple grab the zip code. So we can also grab the country. So we can grab the country. So let me have my country. Then I'll set it equals to payment details again. Then I'll square brackets. Then I'll put the country over here. So I can print the country. So print. Then I can print country like so. So let me remove this. And then let me write my country. Okay. So now if I run my code, we'll have the zip code, we'll have the country over here. So this is basically all for Python dictionaries. In Python, conditional statements are used to make decisions in a program. They allow the program to execute different blocks of code depending on a certain condition being true or false. The most common conditional statement in Python is the if statement. It is used to execute a block of code only if a certain condition is true. So now let's jump straight to code and I'll show you how to create a simple if and an else statement. We have a number over here, so we can call it num1. So we can have 31. So we can make a comparison with this number. So we can check if num1 is equals to 31. So after that, you have a column over here and you come down, then you write the code you want to execute. So simple, I want to print something. So I want to print a simple statement. The statement, so let me write the statement is true. We are checking if the number is equals to 31, then we simple print the statement is true. So now if I run my code, we'll have the statement is true. But what happens if I change num1 to something else, maybe 30, and then I save the code again. So now if I run my code, we'll have nothing over here because the num1 over here is not equals to 31. So we can have the else statement. So I can come over here, then I can have my else statement. But one thing to bear in mind is when writing if statement is your indentation. So if I bring the print, so if I remove the space over here, we'll have this reddish tickling line below because it's not indented well. So it must come, you have to give space so that it will tally with. So I recommend it tally with your variable over here. So now I can have the else statement. So with the else statement, you can simply write it so that it will tally your if statement so that they'll be on the same line. So else, then we can then print maybe the statement. Can I spell statement? Let me remove this. So statement is false. So now if I run my code, we'll have the statement is false because 30 here is not equals to 31. We also have not equals to sign. So this is the equals to sign. And we have the not equals to. So with the not equals to, you have an exclamation mark, then you have an equal sign. So this means that if num1 and this is num1, if it is not equals to 31, and if you check the code, num1 over here is not equals to 31. So if I run my code, we'll have the statement is true because it's not equals to 31. But if we change this num1 so that it will be equals to 31, so now if I run my code, hopefully we'll get the statement is false because it is equals to 31. That's why we have the statement is equals to false. And we also have the greater than sign. So I can have greater than like this. So if num1 is greater than 31, so if I run my code, it's false because it's not greater than 31. But if I change num1 to maybe 32 and then I run my code over here, we'll have the statement is true because it is greater than 31. And we have the less than sign, so less than, and then I say, so if num1 is less than 31 and num1 is not less than 31, so hopefully if I run my code, it will be false because it's not less than 31. And we also have the less than or equals to. So less than or equals to. So it means if the number is either less than or the number is equals to 31. So if I change this to maybe 31, the statement is true because it is equals to 31. So if I run my code, hopefully we'll have the statement is true. So this is the same as if I change this num1 to maybe 29, the statement will still be equals to true because the statement is either equals to or less than what? 31. And this is less than 31. So if I run my code, hopefully we'll get the statement is true. So let me clear the code. So now let's compare a string. So what do I mean? So let's comment this our code. So let's comment the code over here and then we'll try to compare a string. So first let's create a string. So we can have a username and then the username can be John Deal like this. And we can have an if statement to check if the user is equals to John Deal. So to do this, we can have an if statement. We can write if then username is equals to, then we have John Deal. So if we check, we are having problem with our indentation here. So make sure to remove the indentation. And then if username is equals to, then we'll have John Deal like this. Then we can simple print welcome John Deal. So I can have maybe welcome John Deal. So if the username is equals to John Deal, you can simple print welcome, then we'll have John Deal over here. We can then have an else statement and we can then print, so else you have user is not John Deal. So now hopefully if I run my code, so if I run the code, we'll have welcome John Deal because the user is equals to John Deal over here. But if I change this user, so this is the user, right? If I change it, maybe let me make it John, and then I run my code, we'll have user is not John Deere because the user is not equals to John Deere over here. Another comparison we can make is using the start with and the ends with, just like we did before. So with the start with, I can check if username, then I can have dot, then I can have start with. So if the username start with, then I can have my J. So that means if the username over here is starting with J, then simple print welcome John Deal. So let me increase the code. So let me increase it like this. So now hopefully if I run my code, we'll have welcome John Deal because the name is starting with J. And we can also have the ends with. So ends with, then we can put O. So if it ends with O, did I write 0? So I just wrote 0. Let me change it to O. So hopefully if I run, we'll have welcome John Deal because the user here is ending with O. But if I change it to something like A, then if I run my code, we'll have user is not equals to John Deal. So let's remove everything and have our old code back. So John Deal over here. And let me try to close it. So next is using the else-if statement. So with the else-if statement, it's like embedding or nesting a lot of if statements in a single block of code. So what do I mean? So let me copy this and then I'll try to comment it so that we will not have the output, and then I'll try to bring it over here. So we have user John Doe. We can have another user name. So user name username 2, so we can have username 2, maybe John Mary over here, and we can have username 3, and then it can be equals to Michael. If username is equals to, then we can have John Deal, then print here welcome John Deal. So we can have another else if statement. So if this first statement is wrong, it will simply jump to the second statement and check if the second statement is true. So what do I mean? So I can have my second statement over here. So I can check if elif. So elif, then username 2 is equals to John Mary, then I can simple print welcome John Mary. So I think let's just delete everything and we'll have a single user instead of having 3 users. So let's have a single user just like this, so that we'll try to always change the name and then we'll see the effect over here. So I can have welcome John Mary just like this, and we can have another elif statement. So elif user name is equals to, then we can have Michael, then we can simple print welcome Michael. So we can have, so let's put the column over here and then let's try to indent it so that we have no issues with our code. So let's indent it very well. Okay. So now we can have our else statement. So now this else statement will fire if all these statements, if they are wrong. So what do I mean? Let me print something over here. So I can print something like user do not exist. So we have user do not exist. So now if I run my code, we'll have welcome John Deal because the user here is John Deal. So if I run the code, we'll have welcome John Deal. So if I change this John Doe to maybe John Mary, just like this, and if I run the code, we'll have welcome John Mary. So it will simple look at the string and then it will check the face statement. If the user is equals to John Doe, it will print welcome John Doe. But if the statement is false, it will jump to the second statement and check if the username is equals to John Mary. In our case, the name is equals to John Mary, so this code will be fired. But if this code is wrong, the second code, it will jump to the third code and check if the username is Michael. So if I copy Michael and then instead of John Mary, we can have Michael. So now if I run my code, hopefully we'll have welcome John Michael. So I can simply clear my output, and then if we change this to something else, so let's change it to maybe Scott. So I think this is okay. So now hopefully if I run, we'll have user do not exist, because the user is not Michael, the user is not John Mary, and the user is not John Doe rather. So if I run the code, we'll have user do not exist. So that's the purpose of the if statement, nesting if statement in a single block of code. So now let's try to comment everything out, and then we'll move to our next. So next, we want to check if a number is 30 or the number is 40. So now we are checking if the number is either 30 or 40. So here we are bringing the or statement. So what's the or statement? So I can check if, so maybe I can have my number, then I can set it equals to maybe 30. So I can check if number or num is equals to, then I can have 30, or num is equals to, then I can have 40. So this statement will fire if the number is equals to 30 or the number is equals to 40. So in this case, if the number is either 30 or 40, the if statement will fire. So I can print and something like the statement is true, the statement is true. In our case, the statement is what? True, because the number here is equals to 30. So if I run my code, hopefully we'll have nothing. So let's clear everything. So let me clear the output and then I'll try to run it again. So let me run the code again. Hopefully we'll have the statement is true because the number there is 30. And if I change that number to 40 again, so 40, and then I run my code, we'll have the statement is true. But if I change the number to something else, maybe 50, and then I run the code, we'll have nothing. So we'll have no output because the number is neither 30 or 40. But if I bring my else statement, so else, then I can print. So print, so number, or let's just say the statement is false. So if I run, we'll have our else statement fired because the statement there is false because the number is 50. Because the number is 50 and the number is not 30 or the number is not 40. So in case of what? The or statement, it will fire if one of the condition is true. So if this is true and this is equals to false, but it will still fire. And if this is true and here too is true, it will still fire. But if here is false and here is false, in our case, all of them are false because the number is not 30 and the number is not 40, then it will not fire the statement or it will not fire the condition. So let me try to clear everything and then we'll come down again. So now we want to check if a user is an admin and the user is John Doe. So now we want to check if the user is admin and the user is equals to John Doe again. So we can have a dictionary. So a dictionary over here, and then inside our dictionary we can have a user name and then maybe John Doe, and then we can have rule. So role can be admin. So this is our user over here. So now I want to check if the user is admin and the user is equals to John Doe and the user's name is equals to John Doe. To do so, we can have our if statement and we can check if user, then we can target the username. So if the username is equals to, then we can have John Doe and then user slash role. So role is equals to admin. So admin, I think this is okay. Then you can print, so I can then print admin. Did I write my A correctly? So admin. So we can have our else statement. So else print user not admin. So now we are checking if the username is equals to John Doe and the user's role is an admin. So in our case, the username is John Doe and the user's role is an admin. So we'll have admin. So if I run my code, we'll have admin over here. But if I change the user role to something like moderator and then I try to run the code again, we'll have user not admin, because here we are using the end statement, and with the end statement one of this must both of this must be true. So this should be true and this should be true. So if one of them is false, in our case the user role is the user role here is moderator, and we are checking if the user role is admin. In our case this is false because the role is not admin. So the code will not fire the true statement, and then it will jump to the else statement, and it will have user not admin because of the role over here. But if I change to the or statement and then I run, we'll have admin because we are using the or statement. And with the or statement, if one of the condition is true, because this is true and this is false, so if I run, we'll have admin over here. But if you are using the end statement, both conditions must be true before it will fire your code. So now if I run, we'll have user not admin. But if I change the user to maybe admin, so admin like this, and then I run my code, we'll have admin because the user is admin and the username is John Doe. So now let's head over to the shorthand for the if and then the else statement. So we can have a username. So username, then we can set it equals to, so we can have John Doe. So I like using John Doe. So we can write a shorthand if statement over here. So I can print user is John Doe. Then we can then have our if statement over here. So meaning print user is John Doe if the username is equals to John Doe. So John Doe. Else print. So print user is not John Doe. User is not John Doe. Now check the statement. We are printing user is John Doe if the username is equals to John Doe. Else print user is not John Doe. So now if I run my code, we'll have user is John Doe. But if I change this to maybe John and then I run the code again, we'll have user is not John Doe. So this is how to write the shorthand if and then the else statement over here. So if I comment this and then we try it in the case of numbers, so I can have a number and then I can set it equals to 20. So I can print number is 20. So number is 20. So I can say print number is 20 if the number is equals to 20, else print number is not 20. So now if I run my code, we'll have number is 20 because the number over here is actually 20. So this is how to write the shorthand if and then the else statement with Python. First, let's create our list. So we can have a list of our favorite courses. So we can have courses. Then we can set it equals to a list. So to create a list, we use the square brackets. And inside the square brackets, we can have our elements. So we can have our first element. So maybe JavaScript. And then we can have our second element. separated by a comma. So we can have Python. Can I spell Python? So Python. And then we can also have HTML, and then we can have CSS. So this is how to simply create a list. So we have a list containing 4 elements or 4 items. So we can access the whole list by simple printing the list. So print courses, and then I can run my code. So hopefully we'll get our list back. So let me clear the output, and now let's try to access an element in the list. So how do we access an element? So let me comment this out. So to access the element, we access them via their index. So what do I mean? So their index means their position. So the first element have the position of 0, and then we have this 1, 2 respectively. So the first item or the first element in your list have an index of 0. So the index starts with 0. So to access them, so let's take it, we want to get the JavaScript back. So in doing so, we can simple parent, then we'll write the name of our list and its courses, and then you put a square brackets. So square brackets just like this, and inside the square brackets, then you put the index of the element. So if I put 0, then I'm accessing the first element. So hopefully if I print the code, we'll have JavaScript back. So we can also get Python by simple printing the index of Python, which is 1. So 1 just like this. And then if I run my code, then we'll get JavaScript, and then we'll have our Python back. So that's how to simple access an element in your list. So let me clear this. So let me convert it into a comment. And now we want to access all the elements at once. So we want to access every element or item in your list. So what do I mean? So we can access individual elements by their index. But what if you have like 100 items or 100 elements in your list? You cannot use the index method to be accessing them one by one and write 100 of codes. So this is where the looping comes in handy. So we can use the for loop. By simply using the for loop, you simply write for, and then you can specify a variable. So you can specify a variable here. So the variable can be something like maybe course. So let me call it course. So for course, and then then the name of your list. So the name is courses. So for course in courses, and then I'll have a column, and then I'll come down, then I can print the course. So I'm printing this course over here. So if I print course, and then I save my code, and then I run the code, then we'll have our list back, and here we are iterating, and then we are getting each element from the list. You can actually have a sentence over here. Maybe I can have I love to write, and then I'll try to concatenate an empty string, and then I'll concatenate the course over here. So now hopefully if I run my code, we'll have I love to write JavaScript, I love to write, and then we'll iterate the whole list, and then we'll have individual items or elements from the list, and then we'll try to concatenate them to this string over here. So that's how to simple access elements in your list. So next is updating an element. So how do we update an element? So let me scroll down to update. So let me try to comment this out. So I'm commenting it out, and now we want to update an element from our list. So maybe we want to update JavaScript. So how do we do it? So to update JavaScript, we can simply write the name of our list, which is courses. Then we can simply use the square brackets just like we did before when accessing the element. Then we'll pass the index. Then we'll set it equals to our new value. So our new value may be something like React. So now hopefully if I try to print our courses, and then I run my code, you see that this has been replaced with React. So we have successfully updated the JavaScript to React over here. So now let me try to comment it. So we don't need this anymore. And now I want to add an element. So how do we add an element to our list? So in adding element, we use the append method. So we can have our list courses. Then I'll use dot append, and then I'll open the append method. Then we'll have our string over here. So what's our string? So maybe we can append something like React, and then hopefully if I run my code, we'll have our list. So sorry, let me try to print it. So let me print the list. So print courses. So now if I run my code, then we'll have JavaScript, Python, HTML, CSS, and then we have React added. So that's how to simple add an element or an item in your list. So now how about removing or deleting an item? So how do we delete an item from our list? So to delete or to remove an item from your list, we use the remove method. So how do we do it? So we can have courses, then dot, then we call the method which is remove, and then we pass the element we want to delete, the value of the element. And what's the value? So we can delete maybe CSS. So let's scroll up. Okay, CSS. And now hopefully if I print my courses, so let me remove this and then I'll put it here. Then I'll try to print the courses. So if I print and now we don't have CSS because we have CSS deleted or removed from our list. So now I can clear everything. And then next is getting the length of your list. So how do we get the length of this list? So it's quite simple. So to get the length, we simply use our len method just like we did before in the previous lessons. So we can print the length. So print, and then I can print the length. So maybe let me write something like length. Sorry, can I spell length? So length. And then to print the length of your list, you simply use the len method. So len, then you pass your list inside here. So courses. So hopefully if I run my code, we'll have length and it's 4 because the list contains 4 items or 4 elements. A function in program refers to a block of code that performs a specific task. It's like a mini program within a larger program. Functions are used to group code, making it easier to manage, reuse, and understand. Functions are important because they help break down complex problems into smaller, more manageable tasks. By organizing code into functions, it becomes easier to write, test, and debug code. Functions also promote code reusability, allowing developers to use the same block of code in multiple places within a program. For example, if we are creating a shop list, we can have a function that returns all the items. Anytime we need those items, we can simply call the function. So let's start by creating a simple hello world function. The simple function that will print hello world. So to create a function, we call the def and then the name of your function. So maybe say hello, something like this. Then you try to bring parentheses. After that, you can have your colon. Then you can come down and now we are inside the function. So inside the function, we can print hello world. So hello world, just like this. And then if I run my code, nothing will really happen because we did not invoke the function. So how do we invoke the function? So to invoke the function, you simply come out of the function. So this, we are inside the function because this cursor here is in the same line as your print. So we are trying to what? So we have to exit from the function. So I'll bring my cursor here and then I'll write the name of the function. So say hello, just like this. And then I'll invoke the function with parentheses. So now if I run my code, we'll have a hello world printed over here. So how about returning an object? So now we don't want to print hello world. We want to return a simple object. So what do I mean? So maybe you are creating a website or an application where the user can log in. In this case, you can have a function that will simply return all the user's details. So what do I mean? Let's create a function that will return an object containing our user's details. So I can have a function, so def, and then I can call it maybe get user, and then I'll have the parentheses, then column, and here we can have a dictionary. So I can have a user dictionary, and inside this dictionary, we can have our username, and then maybe John Deal. We can have country. Can I spell country? Maybe USA. We can have gender. So gender, male. So this is our user. So we can simple return it. So return, then we return the users. So in this case, now if I try to call the function, so the function is get user, right? So get user, just like so. So now if I try to run it, and then I run my code, we'll have nothing over here. So I can close this, and then I can have a variable, or we can simple print this. So now hopefully if I try to print, and then I print this get user, we'll have our user object over here. So this how to simple return something, or to return an object in your function. So we can also access the username. So I can have another variable over here. So I can call it user again. Then we'll have our get user, and then we'll invoke it. So now this get user over here will simple hold the value of this user's dictionary. So now I can print, so I can print my user below. So hopefully if I run my code, we'll have the same user object over here. So I can also access the username. So I can access the username. So maybe user name. So now if I run my code, we'll have John Deal return over here. So this is how to simply have a function that will return an object. So it can also return a string or a list. So you can simply substitute this with a single string or a list. So now let's go to functions with an argument. So function with one argument. So what does that mean? So let me try to comment this. So functions with arguments. So let me create my function. So I can have a function. So maybe def. Let me call it greetings. So greetings. And then I'll come down. And inside this function, we'll have an argument. So we can have an argument, maybe username, just like this. And then if I try maybe print, so let me print username. So print username like this. So now if I call my function greetings or greeting, so I can pass this username. So you can see this username over here, and then the type is any. So you can pass any form or any data type over here. So I can pass maybe John Deal. So now if I run my code, we'll have John Deal over here. So I can also maybe have a sentence here. So I can say hello. Then I'll try to concatenate my username. So just like this. So now if I run my code, we'll have hello John Deal. And if I change this John Deal to maybe Mary, and then I run my code. So if I run my code, we'll have hello Mary. So this is how to simply pass an argument in a function. So this is the argument we are passing Mary, and then we are simple getting this Mary over here, and then we are printing it inside our function. So that's how to pass an argument, one argument. So how about passing two or more arguments? So what do I mean? So let's comment this out, and then I'll come over here, and then we'll have a function. to maybe calculate. So can I spell calculate? Calculate. So that's the name of our function. And here we are passing two arguments. We are passing x, we are passing y. So now if I can simply print x plus y. So now I'm passing two arguments, x and then y over here. And then I'm simple printing x plus y. So hopefully, if I call my function calculate, and then I pass my x value, maybe 20, and then my y value 30. So now hopefully, if I run my code, we'll have 50 over here. So we can also change this to maybe product, and then I can run my code, and we have 600 over here. So this is how to simple pass two arguments. So you can also pass maybe three arguments, so maybe 40 and then 50 going on. So we can access them. So z, and then we can have q. So now hopefully I can have maybe the addition of all the numbers. So z, can I put my z, and then you can have q over here. So I can write something like summation, or sum. Let's just make it sum. And then we'll have, let me remove this. So sum will have x, y, z, and then q. We are trying to sum them. So now if I run my code, we'll have the summation of all the numbers over here. So this is how to pass multiple arguments in your function. So let me comment this out. So now next is the lambda function. So what's the lambda function? The lambda function, simple and anonymous function, a shortcut to create a function. So what do I mean? So to create a lambda function, you simply write lambda, then you give your arguments or your argument, your expression over here. So to create a lambda function, you first of all have a variable, so maybe greeting or greetings, then you set it equals to, then you write lambda just like this. Then you have your argument. So I can have an argument username, and then you put a column, then you have your expression. So I can write something like welcome, then I can then concatenate the username. So this is how to simply create a lambda function. And this lambda function is simple returning welcome, then the username. And then I can simply have greetings. So greetings, then we'll pass the username. So I can have my username. So sorry for this. Let me close it. So can pass John Deal. So now we can store these greetings in our variable, or we can simply print this. So let me print it. Let me print this. So now hopefully if I run, we'll have welcome John Deal. Or we can have a variable that will save the value, or that will save the expression. So we can have maybe greet. So greet. Sorry, greet. Then I'll set it equals to, then I'll invoke our function, and then I'll pass the argument. And this will simply return welcome, then the username, then it will store it on this greet variable. So if I have my greet variable, and then I run my code, so hopefully we'll have the same output, welcome John Deal. So let me clear everything. So how about passing two or more arguments? So let me comment this out, and let's come down. So now I want to pass two or more arguments. So how do we achieve this? So I can have my maybe calculate. So calculate, then I'll set it equals to a lambda function. We can have x, we can have y, then we can have z, just like this, and we'll have our column, and here we'll have our expression. So I can write maybe sum, then I can have x plus y plus z, just like this. So x plus y or plus d. So we have x is not defined, and we have them over here. So, okay, let's remove this. The problem is from the comma. I think so. Okay. So let's have this. So now hopefully we don't have any problem with our function. So now we can call our function, and we can store the result in a variable called result. Then I can have my calculate, and I'll pass my arguments or parameters, so 20, 30, then I can pass 10. So hopefully if I try to print the result, so print result, and then I run my code, so hopefully, okay, we are getting problem, can only concatenate strange. So sorry, the problem is coming from here because we are trying to concatenate this strange to these numbers over here. So that's where we are getting our problem from. So hopefully, let me see if I can grab all the numbers over here, and then I'll try to convert them into a string. So string str, then I'll pass them just like this. So now let's run the code and cross our fingers. So now we have 60 over here, and 20 plus 30 plus 10 is equals to 60. So what I'm doing is I'm adding all of them. So I'm adding all the arguments, and I've just converted the outcome into a string, and then I'm trying to concatenate it to this sum. So that's why we have this code over here. So sum 60. So this is how to simply use the lambda function and pass 2 or more arguments in the lambda function. In this lesson, we'll be developing a function that allows us to get all courses, add a course to our courses list. Additionally, we'll create another function that will focus on removing a specific course from the list. Finally, we'll be developing a function that will update the list accordingly. Let's start by creating a list of all our courses. So we can have a list of all the courses. So I can call the list courses, and I'll set it equals to a list. Then we'll have the list of all our courses. So we can have JavaScript. So, and then why not Python, since we are writing Python code? Then we can have maybe machine learning, and then we can have HTML, and we can also have CSS. So CSS. So this will simply contain all the courses we have. So now let's focus on creating a function that will return all the courses. So anytime a user wants the courses, you can simply call the function to simply return all our courses. So let's create the function. So def, and then we can call it get courses. So get courses, or let me put underscore courses like this. And then inside the function, we'll simply return our courses. So just return our courses. So courses like this. So we'll return our courses. So now if we try to call get courses, and then maybe let's try to print get courses over here. So let's print it. So now if we print, let me print get courses, and then I run my code, we'll have all of the courses returned to us. And we can also return the get courses or all the courses in a form of a dictionary. So what do I mean? So we can have a dictionary over here. And then inside the dictionary, we can have a value called status. And then the status will be maybe okay. And then we can have our data. So data, and then the data will be our courses. So now if we call get courses and then we run the code, we'll have a dictionary containing our courses. So this is the courses saved on this data, and then we have this that is okay. So we can then return this. Maybe we can have an if statement over here. So first we can check if the length of the courses. So if the length of the courses, so let me put courses. So if the length of the courses is greater than 0, so that means if we don't have an empty array, so sorry, if we don't have an empty list, oh my God, I'm writing JavaScript code. So if len, so remove this. Sorry, I think in JavaScript, this is how it should be. So if len, okay. So remove this, and then we'll have our column. So now let's try to indent this. So let me bring it to this side. So if the courses are greater than 0, that's if the length of the courses are greater than 0, then return this. Else, so else we'll return, so return another dictionary, and inside this dictionary we can have the status, maybe error, meaning there's no courses, so error, and then we can have a message, so message like so message, maybe no courses available, so available. And then another thing we can do is over here we can have another data type or data field. So here we'll have total, so that we'll have the total number of courses over here. So now let me close this. So to get the total, we'll simply use our len, and then inside our len we'll have our courses. So now hopefully if I run my code, we'll have this over here, and the total courses is 5, and the status is okay, and this is the data. And if we want the data, we can simply put our square brackets, then we can pass the data field over here to return our data. So now if I run my code, hopefully we'll have the data returned to us. But what if we have an empty array? So let me remove everything. So now if I remove everything and then I run my code, we'll have this over here. So we are having a problem. So, okay, this is where the problem is coming from, the data. So now let's remove the data because we are returning this message over here. And then meanwhile, there's no data field attached to it. So if we remove the data and then we save and then we run, hopefully our code will run and we have no courses available. So another way to do this is, so let me put everything back. So we can come over here and then we can have another if statement. So we can check if get courses. So get courses. So I'll call the function. So if the get courses and then the status. So if the status, and I spell status. So if the status, if it is equals to okay. So if it is equals to okay, so that means the courses are available. So now we can print the data. Else, instead of printing the data, I can simply print. So let me print the get courses. So get courses, and then I'll print the message. So we have this message. So message. So now we'll check if they get courses. So if the function we've just called dot the status. So the status, so this is the status. This is the status field. So if it is okay, then that means we are returning this object. So then we can grab our data. But if this status is not okay, that means there's an error. And we don't have this data field attached to the error dictionary over here. So in this case, we'll simply return the message. So now hopefully if I run, we'll have the courses. But if I remove the courses, now our code will not crash and we'll have our message, no courses available. So now let me put back all the courses. So now we have a simple code that will return all the courses. So now what about adding a course or adding a course? So let me change this to a. Now I want to add a course to our list. So how do we add a course to our list? Maybe you can call this new course. So new course. So sorry, we can have a function, rather I'm calling it dictionary. And inside this function, we'll pass an argument. And the argument will be the course or the data. So we can call it course or item or data or anything. So let me just make it course. And then we can come over here. And this is our courses, right? So I can simply grab my courses. So courses, then I'll use the append to add a new course or a new item. So I'll simply write course, let me remove the course, and then I'll write this course over here. So we are simply adding the course that we've just passed in our list or in our list. So now hopefully if I call new course, so if we have, so let's come after this, we'll simply return all the courses. So I can simply return a message. So sorry. So let me return all courses. So to return all courses, I'll call my function the get courses function. So this is the get courses function, right? So I'll simply call the function. Then I'll use the data field to grab the data. So just like we did over here. So get courses, then data, return this data. So now if I save and then I call my function new courses. So if I call the new courses function and then I pass the course I want to add. So now I want to add React. I want to add React, right? So now this will return. It will return the courses and then the value will be stored over here. So now if I change this to docs or data and then I try to print, so let me print docs. So I'm trying to print these docs. So now hopefully if I run my code, we'll have the data returned and we have React added over here. So if you check, let me go. It's just something simple. We've just appended the new data, and the new data is this React. And we've just appended it to our courses list above, and then we came down to simple return the data. So we just returned these courses over here. So that's what we did by calling our get courses function, which will simply return all the courses. And then now the data return will be stored over here. And then we've just created or initialized this variable that will hold that data. We've just printed the data over here. So now let's try to update a course. So how do we update a course? So I can come. So instead of, let me comment the printing. So let me comment this print. So to update a course, let me have a function that will update our course. So maybe we can have update. Can I spell update? So update course. So update course like so. So we can pass the ID of the course, not the ID. So let's just call it ID for now. So this ID will specify the index. So we are passing the index over here. So we'll pass the index and then we'll pass the new value. So the new value. So new value. So I'll come over here and then we'll try to update the course based on the index. So the index will be stored on this ID and then the new value, and that's the value we want to update with. So now if I call my courses, so courses, and then I'll put my square brackets, and inside the square brackets we'll pass the index of the value we want to update. So the index will be stored on this ID, right? So ID, and then we'll set it equals to our new value. So new value, just like so. So now we can return all the courses again. So return, I can return all the courses by calling get courses, and then I'll use my square brackets, and then I'll pass my data like so. So now if I call update, so update course, and then I'll pass the index. So let me pass which index? So JavaScript, right? So the JavaScript, the index of JavaScript is 0. So I'll pass 0, and then I'll pass the new value. So we can have next.js. So next.js like so. So now it will return all the courses back to us, and we'll have the value stored over here. So we can have a variable that will simply store the values, and then we can print our variable back. So print docs like so. So now hopefully if I run my code, so run the code, we'll have this over here, and instead of JavaScript, we'll have Next.js. So we've just updated the value of JavaScript with Next.js. So now if I change this to 1, so instead of 0, then I've changed it to 1. So if I run my code, we have our JavaScript, but now we don't have Python anymore, and we have Next.js replacing our Python. So now let's try to remove or to simple delete a course from our list of courses. So to do so, we'll simple come over here and then we'll have our variable. So we can call this maybe delete course. So delete course, and then we'll try to pass the value of the course we want to delete for value. And then we'll come over here and we'll call courses. So courses, then I'll use the dot remove, and then I'll pass the value I want to remove. So the value, so I'll pass value like so. So after deleting it, I'll simply return our courses back again. So let me remove this and then I'll call my return. So return get courses. So get courses. Then we'll have our square brackets again, then data. So now hopefully if I try to delete a course, so delete course, then I'll pass the value of the course I want to delete. So which course should I delete? So let me try to delete CSS. So let's delete the CSS course. So CSS like so. We'll return all the courses again, and then the value will be stored over here. So we can have our dots back again. And then hopefully if I try to print dots like this, and then I run my code, we'll have everything, but we don't have our CSS again because we have just deleted the CSS course. So how about deleting HTML? So let's delete the HTML course. So hopefully if I run my code, we'll not have our HTML course, but we'll have our CSS course inside our list of courses. So this is just a simple application or a simple project to just get you started with functions. So we've created a function that will simply return all our courses, so get courses. And if you check throughout the code, anytime we want all the courses, we will simply use the get courses. So anytime we return get courses, then dot the data will simply grab our courses. So we have a simple reusable function or reusable component we can use throughout our code. And then we are adding a new course, and then we are trying to update a course, and then here we are deleting a course. Looping is a way to repeat a certain set of instructions or actions multiple times. It enables a program to automatically perform a task over and over again without having to write the same code over and over. Imagine you have a list of items and you want to go through one by one and perform a specific action on each item. Instead of writing the same code for each item individually, you can use a loop to repeat the same code for every item in the list. So let's open our code and I'll explain to you how to use looping in Python. We are starting with our for loop. So we are going to generate a list of numbers. So to generate a list of numbers, we simply write the for first, and then we can use the range to specify the range of numbers we want. So if you check, there are a couple of parameters here. So we have the start, we have the stop, and then we have the step over here. So the start is where we are starting, the number we are starting with. So we can start with 0, and then we'll have our stop, maybe 25, and then we'll have the step. The step is simple, the increment. So if I put 1 over here, then I'll have my column just like this. So let me put x for x in range. So it's supposed to be like this. So you can have for x in range, or you can have change this to y, or you can just use anything you want over here. It's just a variable we've just initialized over there. So I can choose to go with x. So for x in range, then we have this. So we can come down and then we can try to print x. So now if I print x, and then I run my code, hopefully we'll have from 0 to 24 over here. So that's how to simple loop or simple generate a list of numbers from 0 to 24. We can also remove this 1. By default, the increment is 1. So if I remove the 1 and leave it like this and run the code, we'll have the same output over here because by default, the increment is always 1. You can also change the increment to something like 2. So maybe let me put 2. So now hopefully if I put 2, we'll have our increment change from 1 to 2. So 0 to 4, then we'll have 6, 8 going on. So that's how to simply generate a list of numbers with our for loop. So we can loop a list. So what do I mean? So if we have a list over here, so maybe I can have a list of all my courses. So I can have a list of courses just like so. So I can have JS, so JS for JavaScript, and then we can have maybe Python, so Python, and then we can have Next.js, so Next.js, And then we can also have our React JS like so. Let me delete this. So React, sorry, capital R. I want capital R. So React JS like so. So we have a list of courses over here. So what we want to do right now is to simple loop through this list, and then we'll iterate each item and we'll try to print it out. So to do so, we can have our for loop. So just write for, then you initialize your variable just like we did above, and then we can use X or maybe Y, or you can just use anything. Maybe you can just have course, but make sure not to write your list name. So I cannot write courses, so there will be a problem with my code over here because this courses, that's the list. And then so we'll have to remove, so I can remove the S to make this course. So for course in, and then I'll bring my list, which is courses. So for course in courses, and then I'll have my column. So I can come down over here, then I can print. So I can print. So maybe let me write something like maybe course, and then I'll print the course. So course like so. So hopefully if I run my code, we'll have our courses over here. We'll have JS, we'll have Python Next.js, and then we'll have our React.js over here. So this is how to simple loop through a list and iterate. So imagine if you have a list of almost maybe 100 items in the list. So this way the for loops comes in handy. You can just use 2 lines of code to loop through the whole list, and then you print everything out. So I can also remove these courses and just leave it like so. Then I'll simply run my code, and then we'll have our JS, Python, Next.js, and React.js over here. So next is looping a string. So how do we loop a string? So I can have my string here, so I can call it sentence, and then I'll set it equals to something like this is the sentence I wanna split. No, not just split. I wanna loop. So this is the sentence I wanna loop. So I can come down, and then I can have my for loop. So I can have something like for, maybe for character. So for character in, then we'll have sentence. So for character in sentence. So now if I try to print my character, so print character and run my code, and then we'll scroll, we'll have the characters loop. So this is the characters we've just looped over here. So we can also, let me clear the output first. We can also come over here, and then we can put an if statement. So what do I mean? So I can check if we get to maybe something like this I over here, and then we'll try to stop the loop over here. So how do we achieve this? So I can come, and then I can have a if statement. So I can check if character. So if character is equals to, maybe we'll have our I, capital I. Oh, sorry. This is JavaScript code I'm writing, so make sure to remove the parentheses. So hopefully we'll have our if statement like this. So if character is equals to I, then I want to break the loop. So let me break the loop. So what do we mean by breaking a loop? Meaning we want to exit from the loop. So now I can, let me remove my character, my print, and then I'll simply send it. I can send it up. So watch what will happen if I send it up. So if I send it up, let's just send it on top. Let's send it on top over here. And let me try to indent it very well. So if we have the code like this, and then I try to run the code, check, it will loop, then it will get to this I, and then it will stop the loop at the I over here. So immediately we get to the I, we'll break our loop. We can also bring the print below so that we will not have this I. So what do I mean? If we check our previous code, so let me run the code once again. So if you check the previous code, we have the I printed over here. So now what we want to do is we don't want to have the I. We want to just end the loop before the I. So we can print, or we can simply have our print pasted below. So let's have our print like so. So now hopefully if I run my code, we will not have the I. We'll simple loop, then we'll get to this E, and then we'll stop, or we'll simply break the loop over there. So that's how to simple break a loop. Next thing is continue. And continue means trying to jump. So if I put continue, so it means trying to skip. So you skip that character. So if I run the code and then we come down, you will check that if we get to the I, we'll skip the I before, and then we'll have our loop over here. So it will iterate everything, and when it gets to the I, it will simple skip the I, and then it will continue with the next character. So that's how to use the continue and then the break. So next is using the else. So how do we use the else? So let me copy this. So I'll copy my loop, then I'll bring it over here. Then we can have an else statement attached to the loop. So watch what will happen if I put that else statement over here. So I can print, let me collapse this. I can print maybe done looping. So if I run my code and then I scroll down, we'll have done looping. So this done looping will be executed if our looping is done. So if we are done with the iterations, so once the looping is done, everything is completed, you can then have an else statement to then continue from here, and then you write your code. Maybe you want to loop through maybe hundreds of code, and then you want the looping to finish before you can execute your code. Then this where the else statement comes in handy, so that you simple have your loop above. After the looping is done, then you can continue with the else statement. Then you can have your code below going. So next is the while loop. So how do we use the while looping? So the while looping is used to iterate or to loop items based on a specific condition. So if a specific condition is true, so we can have maybe I, and then we can set it equals to 0. I can then have while. So while I is maybe something like maybe less than. So can I have less than or equals to 21? Or let me make it maybe 10. So while I is less than or equals to 10, then I can print. So let me print I. So while this I is less than or equals to 10, I'll be printing I. So this is pure English. So if we just check, we are just checking to see if this I over here is less than 10, then we'll be printing I. So after that, we can come down. Then we'll try to increment the I. So I can have I. So sorry, I maybe plus. Can I have my plus? So plus or equals to 1. So now if I run my code, and then let me scroll down, we'll have from 0 over here to 10. So that's simple how we use the while looping. So we are looping from what? 0 to 10 over here. And then I can increment it by 2, and then I'll run my code. And now, instead of incrementing by 1, we'll have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then we'll have our 10 over here. So that's the use of the while looping. We can also use the while looping to loop a list. So how do we do so? So I can have I again. So let me have I. Then I can set I equals to 0. And then the next thing I'll do is then I'll check while this I is less than, then we'll have our list over here. So let me copy this list, our courses list, and we'll try to loop through it. So let me paste it over here. So how I is less than, then the length of our list. So we'll pass the length of our list. So courses like so. Then we'll try to print our courses. So how do we do so? We can print, then we'll have our courses like so. Then we'll put a square brackets, and inside the square brackets, I'll pass I. And then if I have my I, so maybe I plus or equals to, so let me add the equals to like so, 1. So now if I run my code, we'll loop through the list. So if I come down, if I scroll down, we'll have our list JS, Python, then Next.js again, and then we'll have React. So this is how to also use the while loop to loop through a list. But if you check with the while loop, it's more complicated. So you can simply go with your for loop, which is simple, just 2 lines of code, and you are done. So why we are checking the length is because we don't want to try to iterate, and then we'll iterate beyond the length of our courses. So what do I mean? We have their indexes, right? And then we have 4 over here. We have 4 items. So if we don't use this over here, and then we try to iterate, so if I put something like maybe 5, and then I run my code, and then I scroll down, we'll have an index error because the list index over there is out of range. So that's why we use the len, and then we try to grab the length of the whole list before we can iterate. So I can change this to 4 because we have 4 items over here, and then I can run my code and we'll still have the same output over here, JS, Python, Next.js, and then we'll have React. But why not grab this automatically? So maybe we have maybe 100 items over here. You cannot count the whole items and then you write 100 over here. So it's simple to use the len than to write the number over here. So we check while this I is less than the length of our courses, then we'll print, then our courses, then we'll pass I, and this I will simple grab the index of all the items. So we'll start from 0 and then it will put 0 over here, then it will add 1 and this will change to 1, and then next time it will put 1 over here, and so on and so forth till it gets to the end of our courses. File handling in Python is the process of working with files, such as reading from our files. It allows you to manipulate files, retrieve data from there, and store information in files. We use file handling in Python for various purposes. One is reading and writing data. We can read data from our files to perform operations on it, or we can write data to our files for storing information. Two is handling large data. Files can be used to handle large volumes of data that might not fit in memory. By reading and processing data in batches, we can avoid memory constraints. Interaction with external systems. Files can be used to interact with other systems or programs that acquire input or read output from files. In this lesson, you learn how to open, read a file, and also write to a file. So first, let's check to see if a file exists or not. So we need to import the OS. So import OS. So it's a built-in library from Python. So make sure to import it first. So always make sure to have your import on top. So after that, we can then check to see if a file exists or not. So to do so, we can have an if statement. So if, then we can call the os.path. So .path dot exists, so exists with s at the end. Then you open your parentheses, then the path of your file. So the path is simple, the location of the file. So demo, I can have demo.txt, meaning the file. I'm checking to see if a file like that exists on my root directory, in which case which the file is not there. So I can have my column, then I can come down. So let me come down. Then I can print maybe file exists. File, sorry, let me remove this. So file exists. I can then have the else statement. Else I can print. So print file do not exist. Can I spell exist? Exist. Okay. So if I run my code, hopefully we'll have file do not exist because we don't have that file. So we have file do not exist. So if I create the file, so click over here, then make sure to select this your Python, and then click on the empty space over here so that you'll be able to create the file on your root directory. So make sure you don't have the file inside any of your folders over here. So make sure it's on the root directory of your project. So I can click the empty space. So make sure to click. So if you double click, then you can write your file, maybe demo.txt. So you can double click to create a file, or you simple click. So let me delete this. So let me delete it first. So, or you can close everything, then click on the empty space. Once you have everything highlighted like this, so it means you're on your root directory. So you can click over here to create your new file. I can have demo.txt. So now if I press enter and then I run my code again, we'll have file exists because we've just created the file. So watch what will happen if I send the file in any of the folders. So let me send it to our current folder over here. If I send it over there and then I run my code, so let me clear the output and run the code. If I rerun my code, we'll have file do not exist because the file is inside this folder, so it's not on the root directory. So make sure to have your file on the root directory. Let me move it back to my root directory over here. So now we have our file exists. So let me close everything. So next is opening the file. So how do we open the file? So let's open the file and put a couple of texts. So this is my first, can I spell first? First line of code. I love to write Python programs. So programs. And then we'll have maybe happy coding. So happy coding like so. So if I save and then I head over to my main and then I'll try to open the file. So how do I open that file? So to open the file, I'll first of all check if the file exists before I try to open it. So I can copy this code above so that I'll not rewrite it again. And then I'll have this file exist remove over here. So if the file exists, then we'll try to open it. So I can initialize a variable called f, then I can call my open method. So we'll just write open, and inside this method, you can then pass a couple of parameters. So the first parameter is the location of your file, which is demo.txt because it's on the root directory. So demo.txt. And then the next is the method or the mode. The mode, so let me close everything. So in which case we want to read, right? So since we want to read or open the file, the mode is R. So you can just pass your R like so. So now if I try, so I can read all the lines. So let me read the first line first. So we can have first, so sorry, can I spell first line? Then I'll set it equals to, so if I call this F, then I can use the read line method. So read line, I spell read line, so read line, and then I can come and then I'll try to print first line. So first line. So this first line will hold our first line, which is this over here. So calling the read line will simply return the first line of the file. So if I run my code, hopefully we'll get the first line over here, which is this is my first line of codes. So watch what will happen if I duplicate this a couple more of times. So let me just remove the first line, and then instead of read line, I'll simple cut it, then I'll paste it over here. So I can duplicate this over here 3 times. So we have 3 lines of code, right? So if I duplicate it 3 times and then I try to run my code, we'll have our first line, we'll have our second line, and then we'll have our third line over here. So what if you have 100 lines of, maybe 100 lines of code over there, or 100 lines of text? So would you be printing 100 or maybe writing 100 codes to just print the whole lines? I think that will not be an ideal way. So to fix this, I can have a variable called docs, then I'll set it equals to f, then I'll use the read lines. So these read lines will simply return a list of all the lines. So hopefully if I try to print my docs, so docs, and then I run my code, we'll have a list of all the lines in a Python list over here. Then we can iterate through the list to get our lines back. So what do I mean? So I can iterate with our for loops. So I can check for, I can just write for maybe for X in docs, I think so. Then I can try to print maybe X like so. So X. So now if I run my code, hopefully we'll have all the lines printed or returned to us over here. So we have, this is my first line. I love to write Python code, and then we'll have the happy coding. So this is how to simply use the for loop to simply iterate the list returned by the read lines and then print all the lines from your file. So next is creating a file. So how do we create a file? So let's try to close our file. So it's an ideal way to always close your file anytime you are done. So we can have our else statement over here, just like we wrote the else statement for the for loops, and then we can close the file with f.close. So once we are done with the looping, we just close our file. So I can then come, so creating a file. So to create a file, we'll check to see if the file exists. So let me copy our code over here, then I'll paste it over here. So let's first of all check to see if the file exists. So I'll create a file, maybe demo2, I'm calling it demo2, and then I'll check to see if demo2 exists. Then I'll not create the files. So if it exists, I'll print file already exists. So file already exists. But if the file does not exist, so we'll have our else statement like so. So if the file does not exist, then we'll try to create the file. So in creating the file, we use the open. So just write open, and then so let's have our f first. So f is equals to open. Then I'll open my parentheses. Then the file location. So it's demo2.txt. So demo 2.txt. So that's the file we are creating. So next is the mode. So the mode for creating a file is X. So you just pass X over here. So once you are done with creating your file, you can simple print. So maybe file created. So I can print a message, maybe file created. And then I can come down to close my file with f.close over here. So now we are checking to see if the file exists, then we'll print file exists. But if the file do not exist, we'll simply create the file. So watch what will happen if I run my code for the first time. We'll have file created, right? And then we'll have the file over here. So this is the file we've just created, demo2. But if I run my code for the second time, so if I run it for the second time, we'll have file already exists because we already created the file when we ran the first line, when we ran the first code. So let me clear my output, and then I'll open back, and then we'll try to append or override the content of our file. So how do we do so? So let me copy this, and then I'll send it over here. So now we'll check if the file exists, then we'll try to write the content of the file. So I'll remove this, and then I'll remove this. So here I'll print file do not exist. So file do not exist. Sorry if you are not seeing my writing. So I have file do not exist. So if the file exists, then we'll write to the file. So how do we write to the file? So there are two methods. We have the overwriting, and then we have the appending. So first, let's start with the appending. So I'll open my demo2.txt file. Then I'll have a sentence over here. So maybe I love to write Python codes. So this is the text we have in our file. So I'll try to append another text to that file. So to do so, I will call my f, then I'll set it equals to, then I'll open, so open like so. Then I'll pass the location of my file, which is demo2.txt. So demo2.txt, right? So I'll pass the mode, and the mode over here will be A. So A for appending. So appending means just trying to add new content to what already exists in that file. Then I'll call the f.write. So f.write to write. So write. Then I can have another string, maybe happy coding, like so. So if I run my code, so let's close the file first. So always make sure to close your files once you open them. So f.close to close the file. So f.close like so. If I run my code and then I open my demo2 and then we'll have happy coding over here attached to our first sentence. So how about bringing this happy coding to the next line? So how do we do so? So I'll pass this backslash, then I'll put n over here, meaning new line. So I'm trying to escape a line. So if I run my code, let's make sure to remove the happy coding that already exists over there. Then I'll save, and then I'll go back here, and then I'll run my code. So if I run my code, hopefully, by hoping, we'll have our happy coding to the next line over here. So how about writing maybe several lines of text? So maybe I want to add 3 lines of text. So how do we do so? So I can call the dot write. So I think it's so write lines. So write lines. And inside the write lines, I can pass a Python list. So I can have a list of all my lines. So the first line, I'll try to escape. So I'll have my backslash then n. So I'll write something like this is the second. Can I suspect second? So second line. And then we'll have our third line over here. This is our third line. And then we have maybe happy Python. So happy Python like so. So now if I run my code and then I open over here, we'll have all the lines appended over here. So let me open back my code. So another way to do this is to you remove the list over here. So let's remove the list and then we'll use the same write. So write like so. And inside the write, we'll have maybe this. So make sure there are 3. So make sure to have 3 quotes over here. And inside these 3 quotes, then we'll write our lines of our lines. So let me just cut this. So let me cut everything from our demo 2. Then I'll paste everything over here. So let me try to make it, to format it. So I'll try to escape everything. So n, and then let me select everything. So /n like so. So now hopefully if I run my code, we'll have the same output back over here. So this is the same output we have. So this is another way to do so. So let me bring everything. Let me try to send this to format it very well. So, oh my God. So we have this like so. So if I run my code, we'll have the same things appended over here. The reason we are getting this code attached is because we have 4 of them over here. So I'll try to remove this one. So now let me remove everything again, and then I'll run my code, then I'll open this. Then I think now we'll not. Python JSON is a module that provides functions for working with JSON data. JSON, or JavaScript Object Notation, is a lightweight data interchange format that is easy for humans to read and write and easy for machines to parse and generate. It is widely used for exchanging data between a server and a web application. Python JSON module allows us to encode Python objects into JSON strings and decode JSON strings into Python objects. It provides the necessary tools to convert data from one format to another and interact with JSON data in Python. In this lesson, you will learn how to encode data and also decode strings with Python. So let's start by parsing a JSON string. So parsing a JSON string simply means converting a JSON string into a Python dictionary. So let's have our JSON string first. So we can have a JSON string that are usually in the format of like this. You have a single quote, then you can have your data inside here. So we can have just a normal Python dictionary. You can have a username like so. Then we can have maybe John Doe. Now we can have our users age, so age, and then we can have 34. So let's just leave it like this. So now if I print, so let me print the user. So if I print the user like so, let me bring this down. So let me write my code. And then if I come, I'll get this over here. And then you think it's a Python dictionary, but it's not a dictionary. So watch what will happen if I try to grab the username. So if I put my square brackets just like in Python dictionary, and then I put my username just like we did before, and then I run the code, we have a problem because it's not a dictionary and we are trying to access this key, which is the username, which in this case is not possible unless we convert this back into a Python dictionary. So this is how to simply create a JSON string. So this is a simple JSON string. So now let's try to convert a JSON string into a Python dictionary. So how do we convert this into a dictionary? Because when handling requests, so the data comes in the form of a JSON string, so in this form, and you have to pass the data before you can use the data for anything else. So to pass the data, I can simply create a variable called maybe docs, and then it will hold our data. And then we can have, maybe let's import the JSON first. So just write import JSON like so. So we can have JSON, then we use dot, then the loads. Can I spell loads? So loads like so. And then you have your parentheses. And inside the parentheses, you pass the JSON string. And the JSON string is user. Now we'll have our dictionary stored on this docs. So hopefully I can print my docs. So I can print docs out and then I can run the code and then I'll have my Python dictionary. So now this is a dictionary. So watch what will happen if I try to access the username. So if I try to access username and then I run the code, now we can access the username, which is John Dio. We have successfully passed the data and convert it into a Python dictionary, and then we can access the values of our dictionary. So next is stringifying a JSON object. So what do we mean by stringifying? So we can have this our object over here. So let's just call it user again. Then let me paste it over here. So this is a Python object, right? So we can simple maybe print. Then let me print user. Then I can grab the age. So user.age. So if I run my code, we'll have the user's age returned over here. So it's a Python object. So now what we are trying to do is convert it into a JSON string. So how do we do this? So we can have another dictionary. Sorry, we can have another variable over here that holds the JSON string. So I can call it maybe docs. So let me just call it stringified. So stringified docs like so. Let me remove my first underscore and just leave it like so. Stringified docs. So I can set this variable equals to, then I can use the JSON dot dumps. So dot dumps. Then this will convert this into a JSON string. So I'll pass the user like so. So hopefully I can print stringified docs. Sorry, stringified docs like so. So if I print, so let me remove this print over here so that we'll have this single print over here. So if I run my code, we'll have this over here. So we have successfully converted it into a JSON string, but you think it's a Python dictionary, right? So let's try to access this. Maybe our username like so, and then run, then we'll have a problem because it's no longer a JSON, so it's no longer a Python dictionary, it's now a JSON string. So this is how to simple pass and then stringify a JSON object. In this tutorial, we are going to build a simple blogging backend system. So you'll be able to create a new blog, get a blog, delete a blog, and also update a blog. So it's a simple backend system for a blogging website. But before we delve in, I would like to explain some key terms. So first is an API. An API, or Application Programmable Interface, is a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications
to communicate and interact with each other. It defines the methods and data formats to be used when requesting and exchanging information between systems. They form the foundation of a backend development. We also have a request. A request is simply a message that is sent from a client such as a web browser or an application to a server. So we have the get request. The get request is simple use to get all of our blocks. So that's the get request, to simply retrieve all the blocks from the server. We also have the post request. So the post request is used to post a new data, such as posting or creating a new block and saving it on our server. We also have the patch. So the patch is used to simply update an existing block. So we are going to use the patch request to update a block we already have on our database. We also have the delete request. So just as the name suggests, the delete request is used to delete our block or to simply delete data from your database. So let's start by setting up our environment first, and I'll show you how to simply perform all these requests. So this is not a full backend course. So this course is just to get you through or to show you an overview of how you can handle CRUD operations with FastAPI and MongoDB.
An empty folder open over here. So I guess this is where we'll create our backend. So I'll have to create another folder. So let me create a folder. So I'll create a folder over here. Then I can choose to call it maybe Python blogging backend, something like this. And then I'll go ahead and then I'll open my folder. So once I open the folder I've just created, I'll try to open the folder with command prompt. So I'll head on top and then I'll write cmd after clicking on top to open command prompt. So now hopefully I have command prompt open. So I'll go ahead and then I'll try to install some couple of libraries. So let me start by using pip. So pip install. So I need a virtual env. So virtual env. So just type pip install and then virtual env like so. After that you press enter. So once you have it installed, you can go ahead and then you can clear everything, and then we'll start by creating our virtual environment over here. So to create our virtual environment, we simply type virtual env. So virtual env, and then we'll give space and then we'll write the name of the virtual environment. So I like to call it venv. So I like to call it like this. So venv. So after typing virtual env, then venv, just press enter. So now our virtual environment is created successfully. So if you minimize this, so don't close it, just minimize, and then you open your folder. So you find this venv folder over here. So that's your virtual environment. So what we are going to do is to simple activate it. So you need to activate the virtual environment before you can use it. To activate the virtual environment, just use period, then you use the backslash like so, then you write the name of your virtual environment, venv, then backslash again, and then type scripts, and then backslash again, then you type activate, so activate. So let me decrease it, so activate like so. So you have your period, then backspace, then venv, then backspace again, and then we'll have squares, backspace, and activate. After that, you press enter to activate it. So once you have this parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you have the name of your virtual environment, so it means your virtual environment is activated successfully. So if you're on Mac, this command will not work for you. So you have to use this command. So source, then the name of your virtual environment. Then you use the /bin and /activate. So if you're having challenges, just open Google and search for your operating system and how to activate your virtual environment. So now what we want to do is to install our dependencies. So how do we install our dependencies? I can use pip, and then I'll use install, and then we need the FastAPI, and then
We also need, after the first API, we need the UVCon. So we need the UVCon like so. So I need first API and then I need UVCon. So I'll press enter. So we'll install some couple of dependencies later. So just install the first API and the UVCon for now. So now we have all of our packages installed successfully. So I'll go ahead and then I'll open it with VS Code. So code period. So VS Code is open to that directory. So I'll click on I trust the authors. So let me zoom it. So now I'll start by creating my folder structure. So I'll click and I'll create my config folder. And then I'll click and then I'll create another folder for my routes, my models, and then my serializers. So make sure to click so that you have everything highlighted. And then you click on the folder again, and we'll have our routes folder. Then we'll create another folder inside our root directory, and that will be for the models. So I have my config models, and then I have the routes folder. So now I left with our serializers. So we'll have another folder for serializing the data. Simple to decode the data. So now we are done with all of our folders. So we have the VN folder over here, which contains our virtual environment packages. So make sure to not open it and do anything. So these are the folders over here in our root directory. So make sure you have these folders in your project directory. So I open my VS Code, and then I click on the config folder, and then I'm creating a new file to connect to the database. So config.py file. So this file will be used to connect to our database. So open my browser, then we'll search for MongoDB. So we are using the MongoDB online. So click on the first link, which is mongodb.com. So we have the official page open. So you can click on sign in over here. So if you don't have an account, click on sign up and create an account. So I'll try to log in. So once I'm done logging in, then I'll get back to you. I'll accept the policies. So I've decided to create a new account so that I'll show you the steps you are required to create an account. So just enter the details over here. So you can just select. So make sure to fill all the details over here before clicking on the finish button. So select my programming language, so Python. So click finish. I'll close this. So now we are creating a cluster. You can simply click on I'll deploy my database later before we create our cluster. So just close this, and then we'll have the page, the overview page open. So you can simply click on create, and then you can select the free cluster over here. So make sure to select the free cluster. So you select your provider. I like to go with the Google Cloud, or you can select the Amazon Web Service. So after that, you select the location. So try selecting the nearest location for efficiency purpose. So after that, you enter the name of your cluster. So I can have my cluster, maybe Fantex. So just choose a meaningful name to your cluster. Then hit create. So we'll have this page open. So you must have a user created before you can connect to your database. So you can enter the username and then the password. So I can enter a username. I can have John Dio, and then I can have my password. You can hit the create button. So once you are done, we'll have the user over here. So next is adding an IP. So MongoDB you can click on add my current IP, and if you check, this IP address has already been added by MongoDB automatically. So you can choose to add another IP by clicking on the network access tab. Then we have our current IP over here. So I can click on add IP. For testing purposes, you can simply click allow access from anywhere. So you click confirm. So once you are deploying your database online, you can simply delete this allow access from anywhere IP, which is the 0.0.0/0. So once it's active, then we can work with our database. So click on database access, and then we'll have our user over here. You can also choose to add a new user. You can have your username and the password, and then you can select the user role. So let's scroll up and click on database. Then we close this. So click on connect to connect to your database. Then scroll, just select these drivers. After that, you select your driver, which is your programming language. So Python. Then select the version of Python you are currently using. So I'll open back my terminal. Then let me clear everything with the CLS. Then I can have Python -- version. Simply check the version of my Python. So at the time of recording this video, I'm currently using Python 3.12. So I'll select the version which is 3.12 for later. So make sure to select your version. So you can simply use this command to install the PyMongo package. So copy it, then you paste it. So I can paste it, and then I'll click on enter. So once you paste it, press enter to install it. So you can open back, and then you click on view full code sample. So this will be used to connect to our database. So this is the connection URI. So click and copy everything, and then you can paste it over here. So we have our user John Deal. So just remove the password over here and replace it with your current password. So you replace it with the password you are using. So if you forget of your password, you can simply open back your MongoDB. Then you can close this. Then you can head over to your database access. And then you can simply add a user, or you can simply edit the user and then change the password back. So click on edit password. That's if you forget of your password. If you know the password, so I know my password, so I'll simply open back my file, and then I'll put my password in place of this password. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then PyMongo. So I'll save. I'll hit Ctrl+S to save. So always make sure to save every file once you are done with the code. Now I have the PyMongo installed successfully. So let's run the server. So I'm going to run my config file in the terminal. So I have this extension. It's called Code Runner. So if you don't have it, you can simply search for Code Runner in your extensions tab. Then select the first package. So select the first extension, which is the Code Runner, and hit on install to install it. So I already have it installed. That's why I don't have the install button over there. So I'll right click, then I'll run my code. Once I have the code runner installed, then I'll wait. So once we have you successfully connected to MongoDB, so everything is working perfectly. So I'll close this. Now let's try to create our database and our collection. So write DB, evaluate it to the client above, then dot, then the name of our database. So blogging. So this name can be any name you want. So I chose blogging because it's a blogging website. So next is our collection. So I'll have a variable blogs collection. Now evaluate it. Then I'll have my DB, the square brackets. And inside I'll write the name of my collection. So I can have maybe my blogs, or let me just make it blogs. So I have the collection created, and I have my database created and connected successfully. If you need access to the course files, I'll provide a link to the course repository. Simply click on the link to download and extract the files. Additionally, if you are currently watching this on YouTube, please consider giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more content. You can also visit us on fantex.netlify.app. Now let's return to the main video.
So I intentionally close all the project and then I cut the server and then I close the CMD and also close my text editor. So I want us to rerun the server again. So make sure to close your VS Code and also close the command prompt where you have your server running. And let's start all over again and run our server and open our project in VS Code again. So this is our project, right? So this is the project. So I'll open the project, the whole project in VS Code. So I'll click over here. So make sure you're on the root directory where you have all your project files and click over here. Then we'll have our CMD. So I'll expand this. So now let's try to activate our virtual environments first. So we have to activate it before we try to run. So the first thing you always have to do after opening your CMD is activating your virtual environment. So v so slash we have activate slash slash I think it's slash scripts, so scripts slash activate, so slash activate and then enter. So now we have our virtual environment activated. So I can use CLS to clear everything. So now the first thing we have to do is run our server. So let me open my project in VS Code first. So open the project. So code and period, and then I'll open my project. So I have my project open over here. So I can run my server. So, but before we run the server, we have to create our entry point. So open back your file. Let me try to zoom it. So let me zoom it. So I think now it's okay. So click over your Explorer over here, and then you bring the cursor over here and click on the empty space. After that, you can create a new file. So right click and have a new Python file. So make sure the file is not in any of these folders. So make sure you have your file on your root directory. So I can call it main.py. So this will be my entry point. So I'll collapse this over here. Then I'll use from FastAPI. So I want to import the FastAPI, APIs. Can I spell it? So I think it's this. So from FastAPI, so sorry, import, so have import. So from FastAPI, import FastAPI like so. After you have this, you can initialize the FastAPI you've just imported. So I can have a variable, so sorry, then I'll evaluate it through my FastAPI on top, and then I'll initialize it like so. So the next step for me is to simply save this, and then I'll open my routes file, my routes folder rather. So I'll open my routes folder, and then I'll create a new file over here. So I can call it maybe entry.py. So this will contain our entry API or our endpoint. So let me collapse this. So inside our entry.py, we are going to import, so from FastAPI, I'm going to import the API router like so. So I'll use the API router to wrap all my endpoints, and then I'll try to import it over here and use it on our main directory. So I can have maybe entry route, so entry root, so let me just call it root. Then I'll set it equals to, then I'll have my API router like so, then I'll initialize the API router. So we can then start creating our first request. So to create our first request, let me just call this maybe endpoint. Let me call it my endpoint. So endpoint. So we can come over here to have our request. So we are going to create a get request over here. So I'll use the @ sign, and then I'll call the entry root. So at entry root, so like so, and then you put dot, and then you put the request you want. So I'm going to have a get request. So I'll just put get like so.
and then I'll put the route. So the route will be /. So / means the main route. So this will be our main route. So let me come down, and then I'll have my function. So you always have a function below. So I can call the function API running. So let me call it API running. And then I'll come over here to simply return a Python dictionary. So I can have a dictionary. So let me first of all create the dictionary over here. So I can call it response. Then I'll set the response to be equals to a Python dictionary like so. Then we'll have our status. Okay. So the status will be okay. And then we'll have the message as maybe API. So API is running like so. So API is running, so I'll have to return. So let me return the rest. So I'm returning this dictionary over here. So now if I save and then I come to my main.py, so here I'll have to import this entry root over here. So I'll have to import it over here. So to import it, I'll simply use from, then the name of the folder. So this is the name of my folder, rouse. So from rouse, so you write the name of your folder from rouse, then you put period and the name of the file you want to import from. So it's entry. So entry like so. Then you write import. So import. Then I'm importing what? The entry root. So this is the entry root over here. So I'm importing the entry root like so. So I can come down and then I'll have app dot include router to include this route over here, to include it over here. So include router, then I'll wrap my entry root over here. So entry root. So sorry. Entry underscore root. So this is all. So now you can save. So make sure you have your files saved. After saving your files, just open your command prompt where you have your virtual environment activated. Then you can clear everything. Then I can then type uvcon. I spell uvcon. So uvcon, then main, then column, then app, and then I can use the reload flag also. Then I'll press enter. So we'll have our server run, our local server run on this URL over here. So I can simply copy this URL and paste it on my browser. Or for my case, I can simply hold Control and then I'll click to open it. So I have it running. So now you have API is running. So if we put /, so this is the same as putting /. So if I put /, it's the same thing as leaving the /. So you can also use /docs. So put /docs to navigate to their documentation. So this will show all your APIs over here, or your endpoints rather. So it will display all the endpoints you have over here. So you can click on this tryout. So this is our first endpoint. It's a GET request. And then the name of what? The function is API running. So if I click over here and then I execute, we'll have the same Python dictionary returned to us. So this is how to quickly create your first GET request with FastAPI. Let's try to post a new block to our database. So we'll first of all have to create our model. So I head over to the model tab, then I'll click over here, and then I'll click over here to create a new file. Then we can call it block. So I can call it block.py. So I have the file created and open over here. So let me go ahead and remove this tab. So first we'll have to import our base model from Pydantic. So just write from Pydantic, then import, then base model. So that's what we need for now. So we can have a new class over here. So class, then Then we write the name of the model. So I can call it block models. So I think let me just call it block model. So block model. Then you open parentheses. Then you pass your base model. After that, put a column. Then you come down to have your attributes. So the attributes of the class. So we can have the title, and then you specify the data type of the attribute. The title should be a string. Then we can have our subtitle. So subtitle, and the subtitle should also be a string. We can also have the content of our block. So I can have content, and the content should be a string. And then we can have the author, and the author should be a string. And then we'll have tags, so tags, and then the tags will be a list. So we'll pass a list of tags. So I think this is okay for now. So I think we are going to pass date, but not here. So the date will be assigned automatically. So that's why we are not passing the date over here. So let me open back my Explorer tab, and then I'll head over to my routes. So I have opened the routes folder. So I'll click over here to create a new file. So we can have block again. So block.py inside our routes folder. Then I'll press enter. So we have two block.py files, but this is for our model and this over here is for our route. So I'll open the one in the routes folder, and let me close the tab. So let's import the API router. So from FastAPI, import API. So can I spell API router? So after that, you initialize your API router like we did before. So I can have, maybe let me just call it block root. So block root. So this is how I like to name my variable to initialize the API router. I simply look at the name of the file, then I write the name of the file, then I put an underscore, then I attach root. So that's why we have the entry file, and then over here we have entry underscore root. So you evaluate it to the API router, and then you put parentheses to initialize it, right? So let me collapse this. So now we can start creating our requests. So post request. So post request simple means posting a new data to our database. So to create a request, you first of all grab your variable over here. So it's block post. So sorry, it's block root. So you put the @ sign, then the name of the variable. So block root, then you put period, then the name of the request, and then the method. So the method is post. So just write post. Then you open parentheses, and then you pass your route over here. So the route here, so I can choose to call it slash maybe new slash block. So I think this is okay. So if the user visit your application, so we'll have a URL to your application. So if we come over here, this is the URL. So this is the URL. So if the user wants to post a data, so the user will have to pass something like maybe new slash block, like so. So let me check to see. So new slash block. So if you are sending the API to the user to post a data, so this is how you send the API, new slash block. So let me remove this, and then we'll have this back. So I'll come to have my function over here. So I'll create the function, so def, then I can call it maybe new block. So that's the name of my function. And I open parentheses, and then I pass an argument. So we are grabbing an argument over here. So I can choose to call it doc, or you can call it data, or anything. So let me pass doc. So this argument will simply hold the values of the data the user is trying to post. So I'll pass the base model. So let me import it first. So from, then the name of my file. So in the name of my folder, so models, then I'll put period, then the name of my file. So it's block. Then import the blocks model. So I think it's blocks model, right? So block model. So I think it's block model. So I'm importing the block model from my models over here. So this is the block model. Let me open back and then let me collapse this. And then I'll come over here to pass the block model. So pass the block model like so. So this simple means that the data the user is trying to post should match with our blocks model. So it should be the same as the block model. So it will have, so the data the user is trying to post should have the attributes similar to our blocks model. So I'll put my column, then I'll come inside the function and I'll grab the doc. So let me create another variable. I can just call it doc again. Then I'll grab my doc over here and then I'll try to convert it to a dictionary. So to convert it to a dictionary, so first of all write your dic and then you open parentheses, then you put the doc over here. So this will convert the data into a Python dictionary. So I can simply return the data back and then let me save and then I'll open back and then I'll try to refresh. So let me head over to my docs, then I'll refresh. But make sure you have your server running. So make sure you have the server running. So if you come, you not see anything over here. So we don't have the route over here. So the problem is from our main.py file because we didn't import that route. So we have to import it. So to import it, we can use the from, then the name of our folder, which is the routes folder, so routes, then period, then the name of the file, so block, then import, and then I'm trying to import the variable I've initialized over here, which is the block underscore root. So import block underscore root. So I can come to now include it in my router by using the app .include router. So include router and then I open and then I pass the block underscore root. So block underscore. So can I spell block underscore root? So block underscore root. So now if I save, then I open, then I refresh, hopefully we'll have our route shown. So now if you check, we have the new block route shown. So if you click to open the tab and then you scroll down, you have your attributes, you have the title, subtitle, content, author, and then we have the tags. So just click on the try it out and then try. So change the title to something else. So I can just call it new post and then come down and then click on execute. If you scroll down, you find that the data you've just sent over here has been returned to you. So this is the data. So now instead of returning the data to the user, we want to post it in our database. So open back and then we'll go to our routes file and then let me close the main.py file. So now we don't need it. So let's import our blocks collection from our config file. If you open our config file, we'll have the blocks collection over here. So we want to import it. Just open back over here, then use the from, then the name of the folder, which is config. So from config, then you put period, then the name of the file is the same as the folder config. Import, and the name of our collection, which is blocks underscore collection. So blocks underscore collection. So now we can come down and then let's try to automatically assign a date to each block. So we want to assign the date to the block automatically. So to do so, we need to import the date time from our Python library. So date time. So just write import date time and save. So we can come over here to have another variable which I can call current date. Then I'll evaluate it date time. So date time, then you use period, and then you write date, and then you use period again, then you write today. So today to grab today's date. So this was simple, return today's date and we'll store it on this variable. So now we can grab our doc dictionary, and then we can use the square brackets to add a new key or a new attribute to the dictionary. So the attribute we want to add is the date attribute. So we can evaluate it to our current date, so current underscore date. So now, hopefully, if I try to return my doc and then I save this and then I open back and then let me execute. Now, if you come, okay, we have now, so let me check to see if everything is working correctly. So everything is working correctly. So just refresh. So if we refresh, hopefully, I think it will work. So refresh it first. So now let's click on try it out again and then let's execute. So now hopefully if you come, you have today's date attached to your dictionary. So now let's try to post the data to our database. So to post the data, let me clear this. We use the name of the collection. So first you write the name of the collection, which is the blocks collection. So blocks collection. Then you put period. Then you use the insert underscore one to insert one data. So we are inserting a single document. So that's why we are using the insert underscore one. Then you pass the data you want to send. So this is the data doc. So this was simple post the data to our database. So now what we want to do is to get the ID of the data once it's posted. But if you check our model over here, we didn't pass any ID. So let me check. So there's no ID here. But MongoDB will automatically assign an ID to each document. So if you try to post a document, MongoDB will assign an ID automatically to that document. So we want to get the ID back. So first, let's change this current date. So let me try to convert it to a string first. So convert it to a string. So I think this is okay now. So now what we want to do is assign a variable to this. So to the request over here. So to assign a variable, just write the name of the variable. So I can just write res, which simple means response. So I'll just assign res to this over here. So now if I come, this res over here have a method called the inserted underscore ID. So how do I get the inserted underscore ID? I can have a variable which I can choose to call doc ID, and I can evaluate it to the res. Then I'll use period. Then I'll call the inserted underscore ID to grab the ID of the document I've just inserted. So now what I want to do is to simply return a Python dictionary, and inside this dictionary we'll have our first attribute, which is the status, and then the status will be okay. So okay. And then we'll have our message, so message, and the message will be maybe blog posted successfully. So blog posted success, let's press successfully, and then we'll have the ID of the blog we've just posted, so underscore ID, and the ID will be stored over here. So let's try to convert it to a string before we send it. So to do so, just grab everything over here and write str, and inside the parentheses you paste it. So now I will have my doc underscore ID. So now if I save and then I open back and then I refresh, so now let's click on try out again, and let me just click on execute. For now we want to test and see if everything is working perfectly. So now if you check, we have blog posted successfully and we have the ID returned to us. So open back in MongoDB and click on database over here. So now if you check, we'll have the browse collection. So click on the browse collections and then we'll have your collection over here. So this is the database blogging and this is the collection blocks. So if you click on the blocks, you find the data you've just posted. So this is the data I've just posted. So I can choose to delete it. So just delete the data. So click on delete to delete it. So once it's deleted, open back and then we'll try to post another block. So this time we'll have a meaningful title. So I can call this maybe learn
So let me just call it Python. And then I'll have a subtitle. So Python course for beginners. And then I'll have the content of my blog. So I can just write this is the content of my blog over here. So I'll have the author over here. So the author will be Fantex. Then I'll have my tags. So the first tag I can have Python. Then I'll use comma. Then I'll have the second tag, which is maybe programming. So programming. And then I'll have maybe PyMongo. And then I'll have another tag, maybe database. And then I'll click on execute. So once you click on execute, we'll have block posted successfully. So let's post another block. So I can have JS for JavaScript, and then I can choose to change this to JS again, and then I'll have JS, and then let me post. So execute, we'll have the block posted again. So if you open your database and then you head over to your collections and then click on refresh. So once you click on refresh and then you scroll down, we'll have, so now if you scroll, this is the first data we've posted, and this over here is the second data we've just posted. So this is how to simply post a new block to our database. In the next lesson, we'll look at how to update a block. So in this lesson, we want to retrieve our blocks from our database. So just click on the Explorer tab and then head over to your serializers. So once we have the block returned, we'll have to serialize them before we can view them. So serializing simple means decoding the blocks. So the blocks are coming in the form of encoded. So we decode to get our blocks back. So click on the serializers and then you create a new serializer file over here. So I can call it block.py. So inside my serializer block.py file, let me collapse this. So first, we'll have to serialize one document. So one document. So to serialize one document, we have a function. So def, then the name of your serializer. So I can call it decode, then block. Then I open my parentheses, then I pass my argument. So after this, we map the whole function to a Python dictionary, like so. So dictionary. So inside this function, we can return a Python dictionary. So we can return a dictionary. So inside the dictionary, we can have the title of our block. So title. So sorry, can I spell title? So title. And then the title will have the doc, then you pass square brackets, then title over here. So make sure that any data you pass in your square brackets should match with your models over here. So title. And next is our subtitle. So let's not forget of our ID. So let's add the ID. So ID. And then this ID will be returned to us in the form of an object. So it will be returned encoded in the form of an object. So let's try to convert it to a string first. So str, then we open, then we pass our doc, then the square brackets, then underscore ID to grab the ID. So make sure to separate this attribute from this with a comma. So we have our title, so I can put a comma, and then I can duplicate this a couple more times, and then we can have subtitle over here. So subtitle. So I can copy my subtitle, and then I can paste it over here. So next, we can have the content, and then content. So sorry, content.
So we can have our author. Can I spell author? So author. And then we can have author again. So next is our date. So date. Let me pass the date. And then I'll pass date over here. So this is how to simple serialize one document. So next is serializing a list. So this will simple serialize a Python dictionary which contains one document. But what if we want a whole blocks? So want to grab every blocks. So to grab them, it will return in a form of a Python list. So all blocks. So we'll have a serializer to serialize all blocks. So I can have my function, then I can call this decode. So sorry, decode blocks. So this over here is the code block without S, and this is the code blocks with S. So here I pass my docs. So make sure the docs have S. So you can map this to a Python list. So list like so. And here we'll return a Python list. And inside our list, we'll have the function over here, which is decode. So decode block. And then we'll try to iterate our data over here. So we'll pass an argument doc like so. And then we'll iterate by using the for loop. So for doc in docs. So this will simple grab this dictionary and try to iterate all of our blocks over here. So let's save, and then we can open back our blocks file in the routes folder. So over here. So we can come down to have a get request. So getting blocks. So let me delete one of my T. So I'll have my @ sign, and then I'll write my block root, and I'll put period, and the method will be a get request. So I'll pass the route. So it should be slash all slash blocks. So slash all slash blocks. So here we'll try to get all the blocks. So I'll have my function, which is simple all blocks. So all blocks. Then my parentheses. Then I'll come over here to simple have a response variable, and I'll evaluate it to my blocks collection. So blocks collection, then I'll use the period, then I'll write find. So the find will simple return all the blocks to us. So now we have all the blocks returned and stored over here. So now what we should do is try to serialize it. So we have to import our serializers. So I'll use from in the name of my folder, which is serializers. Then I'll use period in the name of the file, which is block. Then import the decode blocks. So decode blocks. So let me also try to import my serializer for a single block. So I have the decode blocks for all the blocks, and then I have decode block for a single block. So I can come over here, and then I'll have my decoded data. So decoded data, then I'll evaluate it to my res, and then let me have my decode. So decode blocks, and then I'll pass the rest. So this rest over here will simple have the list of all the blocks. So I'll pass it over here. So rest to simple decode the data. So once I have the data decoded, so make sure it's blocks, decode blocks, because we are returning all the blocks. So now if I come, I can return a Python dictionary. So I can have status, so status, then I'll set it equals to OK. So let me try to close this, and let me close this. And then I'll have my data, so data, and then the data should be my decoded data, so decoded data. So now hopefully if I save and then I open and then I refresh. So if I close this tab and then I scroll, we'll have all blocks over here. So I'll expand the tab and then I'll click on tryout, then execute. So now if we scroll, hopefully we'll have all of our blocks turned to us. So this is the status and this over here is our data. So now what if we want a single block? So we want to get only this block instead of grabbing all the blocks at once. So to do so, I'll open back my file and then I'll come over here to have a new request. So I'll write at block root, then period, then it's a get request. So get, then I'll open my parentheses and then I'll have block, then I'll put slash, and then I'll put curly braces, and inside of my curly braces, I'll pass the ID of the block I want to grab. So I'll put underscore ID. So if you want to get this block over here, simple copy the ID, then you can pass it maybe like so. So we'll have, so let me create a comment. So if you pass block like so, and then you pass the ID like so, it will simple return this block to us. So let me remove this over here so I don't need it. So now if I come, I can have my function. So I can create my function, then I can call it get block. So get block. So this is all blocks and this is get block. So I'll open back and then I'll pass my ID like so. So underscore ID. So I'll specify the data type of the ID. So I'll put column, then I'll put str, meaning the ID should be in a form of a Python. So the ID should be in a form of a string. So I'll have my column and then I'll come down to simply grab the block with this ID. So to do so, I'll have to import the object ID from bsyn. So I'll write from bsyn, so from bsyn, import object ID. So sorry, object ID like so. So the O is capital and the I over here is capital. So I'll scroll down over here and then I'll have a new variable res, then I'll evaluate it to my blocks collection. So blocks collection, then I'll use dot, then find underscore one, and then I'll open my parentheses, and then I'll pass a Python dictionary over here. So the key of the dictionary will be the ID. So I'll put underscore ID like so, and then the value will be the ID the user just passed. So I'll pass the ID. So I'll have to wrap the ID in my object ID. So wrap it in the object ID. So object ID, then you open parentheses again, and inside this parentheses, we'll have the underscore ID. So this will simply find the block with the ID passed and return it to us. So we'll have the data stored on this res. So now we can decode the data like we did over here. So to decode the data, so I can have decoded block. So sorry. So decoded underscore block. Then I'll set it equals to. Then I'll use my decode block, which I've imported from my serializers. So the decode block will simply decode a single block. So I'll open my parentheses, then I'll pass the rest over here. So now we'll have the decoded block stored over here. So now I can return a Python dictionary. So we can have the status of our dictionary, and the status will be OK. So OK. And then we'll have the data. So data, and the data will simply be our decoded block. So now if I save and then I open and then I refresh. So if I close this tab and then I scroll, we'll have block/ID. So I'll click on that. Then we'll have to pass the ID over here. So let's first of all click on all blocks and then I'll try it out to get all the blocks. Then I'll try to get an ID from here. So just copy any of the ID over here, then scroll down and then click on try out. Then you paste your ID. So paste the ID and click on execute. So if you scroll down, now we'll have a single block returned to us. So you can also use the URL over here. So this is our endpoint, right? So I can put a / and then I'll have the name of the route. So let me open to get the route. So the route is /block/ID. So if I put /block/ then I'll paste my ID and then I click on enter, we'll have the data returned to us again. So this is how to simply get our blocks. So now let's try to update our block. So how do we update a single block? So to do so, we can come to have our request. So I can call this update block. So I can use my @ symbol, then my block root above. So I'll call my block root above over here. I can use period, then I can write patch. So the patch is used to create an update route. So I open, then I'll have my route. So the route can be update. So let me use lowercase. So update / then we'll pass the ID of the block we want to update. So _ID. So now I can come to have my function. So def, then I can call the function update block. And then I'll open the function and then I'll have the ID of the block I want to update. So the ID should be in a form of a string. Then we'll have our second argument, which is the document. So this will hold the data we want to use to update our block. So it should be in a form of our block model. So now I can come inside my function and then I can try to print the data back. So I can have my request, then I can evaluate it to my doc. So let me try to change the doc to a Python dictionary. So I can pass it over here. So now if I try to return, so let me return the request. So request. So now if I save, then I open and then I refresh. So if I scroll down, we'll have the update / the ID. So let me grab an ID from our blocks. So I'll head over to all /blocks and then I'll execute. So now if I scroll, then I can copy an ID from here. So now if I scroll down to my update, I can expand the tab and then I can paste the ID by clicking the tryout and then pasting my ID. So now if I click execute and then I scroll down, we'll have our Python dictionary returned to us. So what if you want to update the title? So you don't want to update the content, the author, and the tags. So you want to update only the title. So if I delete everything, leaving the title, and then I try to execute, then we are going to have problem. So to fix this problem, we'll have to open back our file, then we'll head over to our models. So inside our model, we can create another model for our update. So I can copy this model and then I can bring it down, then I can paste it. So make sure the class is in line with the class above. So now I can change this block model to update block model. So update block model. So now we'll come and then we'll put an equal sign, then we'll add none. So this will specify that we can omit any of the attributes. So we can choose to update only the title or the subtitle. So make sure to add none to all the fields. So none, and then the author should be none. Then this should be none. So now if I save and then I open back my routes file, then I scroll up and then I'll import it from the model. So from here, I can import my update block model. So I can scroll down and then I can change this to update block model. So update block model. So now hopefully if I save and then I open back and then I try to send a request. So let me execute and then I'll scroll down. So now if I scroll down, we'll get the title over here and we'll have the subtitle, the content, the author, the tags, all of them now. So now what we want to do is to dump the subtitle, content, author, and tags. So this will simply dump all values with now. So now let me try to copy this. So click over here to copy this. So once you copy it, send it above and then paste it. So now copy the string and then instead of the null, put string and put the string over here again. So make sure they are in the quotations. So now I can choose to omit the tags and then I can omit the title. So now I can update only the subtitle, the content, and the author. So now if I execute and then I scroll down, okay, we are having an error. So the error is from this comma over here. So make sure to always remove the last comma from your dictionary. So now if I execute, hopefully we'll have everything returned. So now if we check, the title and the tag are now while we have subtitle, content, and author. So this will give us the ability to simple update any of the attributes and omit the others we don't want to update. So now if I open back, what we want to do is to simple grab all the attributes with the now values and then we'll dump them and we'll have only those with values. So now if I open back, then I come over here. So this doc, I'll use period, then I'll write dump. So sorry, then I'll put period, then model underscore dump. And then I'll open and then I'll put exclude unset. So exclude underscore unset. So select this, then set it equals to true. So this will simple dump everything with null and only return those with values. So now if I open and then I execute, so if we scroll down, now we'll have those with null values dumped and we only have those with valid values returned. So now I can choose to update the subtitle and leave the rest. So now if I scroll down, okay, we are having problem. So the problem is from the comma. So let me remove the comma and leave this like so. So let me execute and then I'll scroll and then we'll have the subtitle. So now we can grab the document with that ID and then we can update it. So to do so, we'll simply use our blocks collection. So blocks collection, then blocks underscore collection, then period, then I'll use find one and update. So find underscore one underscore n update. So find one and update. Then I'll open my parentheses and then I'll pass the ID of the document I want to update. So let me collapse this and then we'll have a Python dictionary over here. So let me open this like so and then we'll pass the dictionary. So we'll pass our ID, so underscore ID, just like the way we use to find one block like so. So here I will have the value, so I'll pass the object ID just like so, just like we did over here. So I can even copy this and then I can paste it. So let me just paste this over here. So let me close it. So find one and update, and then we are passing the ID of the document we want to update. So next is the data. So we pass the ID and then we'll pass the data. So this is the ID. So I'll put comma and then I'll come to have my data over here. So I'll have another Python dictionary and then we'll put a $sign and then we'll write set. And this set will evaluate it to the data we want to update. So I'll put my request like so. So now if I save and then I come, instead of returning the request, I can return a Python dictionary. I will have the status
OK. We can have the message, so message, and then I can write block updated successfully. So now I can save this and then I can open back and then I'll refresh. So I'll scroll up to all blocks, then I'll click tryout, then I'll execute, then I'll grab an ID from one of our blocks. So we are grabbing the ID from our Python block. So I'll copy their ID, then I'll scroll down to my update, and then I'll click on tryout. So now I'll paste the ID over here. So what I want to do right now is update only the title. So I'll remove everything and make sure to remove the comma. So I'll remove the comma. So I can change this to Python course and then I can try to execute. If I scroll up, we'll have block updated successfully. But how do we know that our block is updated? So I can simply grab the ID again, and now I'll head over to my block/ID to get a single block. I'll click on tryout, then I'll paste my ID, and then I'll execute. So now if we come, we'll have the title of the block change. Now it's changed to Python course, and we have the subtitle, and we have the content remain the same. So this is how to simple update a block. So let's try to delete a block from our blocks. So I'll come below, then we'll have our delete request. So delete block. So I'll use my @ symbol, then I'll call my block root, then I'll use my period, then we'll write delete. So it's a delete request, so I'll pass the route over here. So I'll pass /delete. So I'll come to have my function, so def, then I can call it delete block. I'll open my parentheses, then we'll have to pass the ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll have to put / again, then I'll pass the ID over here. So _ID. So I'll grab my _ID, and then the _ID should be in a form of a string. So now we can come inside our function, and then we'll use the blocks collection dot find one and delete. So find one and delete. Then I'll open with parentheses, and inside here we'll pass the ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll have it in the form of a dictionary, and then I'll pass the ID, and then I'll evaluate it to my object ID, so object ID, and then I'll pass the ID over here. So this will simply find one of the block with that specific ID and delete it. So we can return a simple Python dictionary. So sorry, dictionary instead of list. Inside the dictionary, we can have the status, which will be OK. And then we can have the message, so message, and the message will be block deleted successfully. So sorry, let me cancel everything and I'll put it inside my quotation. So block deleted successfully, like so. So let me change this to column instead of a semicolon. So now I can save this, and then I can open back, and then I'll try to refresh. So now I can collapse this and I'll scroll down to have my delete route over here. So if I expand the tab, and then I'll click on tryout. So let's first of all get an ID of the block we want to delete. So I'll click on all blocks tab, then tryout, then I'll execute. Then I can scroll to grab an ID of this JS block. So now if I copy the ID from the JS block, and then I scroll down, then I paste it. So now if I execute and then I scroll down, we'll have block deleted successfully. So now if I scroll up, Then I click on the execute for all blocks to grab all my blocks, and then I execute. Now we have one block because the other block is deleted. So this is how to simple delete a block from our database.